Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Read Harry. So in this video, we will see, what if Harry walked into Gringotts at age 7 and bought Knockturn Alley to rule the Underworld. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Vanished. The cupboard under the stairs smelled like dust and forgotten things. Harry Potter pressed his back against the wall, knees drawn to his chest, and listened to the Dursleys eat dinner. The clink of silverware against plates. Dudley's wet chewing. Uncle Vernon's satisfied grunts between bites of what smelled like roast beef and potatoes. His stomach cramped so hard he had to bite his lip to keep from making a sound. 3 days. They'd locked him in 3 days ago after the incident with Dudley's birthday cake. The one that had somehow ended up on the ceiling when Harry walked past it. He hadn't meant to do anything. He never meant to do anything. But the cake had floated up like it weighed nothing at all, and Aunt Petunia had screamed, and Uncle Vernon's face had gone that particular shade of purple that meant Harry was in serious trouble. No food. No water except what he could cup from the small leak in the corner when it rained. No light except the thin line that crept under the door. Harry was 7 years old, and he was fairly certain he was dying. Not dramatically. Not quickly. Just, fading. His thoughts had gone fuzzy around the edges. His hands shook when he tried to hold them still. The hunger had passed through pain into something duller and more frightening, a hollow absence where his stomach used to be. I could die in here, he thought, and the strange thing was how little fear accompanied the realization. I could die and they'd probably just tell everyone I ran away. Aunt Petunia's voice cut through the wall. Vernon, the Hendersons are coming for tea tomorrow. I want the boy out of the house. Have him weed the garden or something. Keep him out of sight. Humph, fine. But he's not getting dinner. Not after what he did. Obviously not. Harry closed his eyes. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow he could maybe find something in the garden. A worm. Grass. Anything. His stomach cramped again, worse this time, and he curled tighter into himself. The pain radiated outward, pulsing with his heartbeat. He pressed his forehead against his knees and tried to think about something else, anything else, but his mind kept circling back to food. Bread. Just bread. Please. I'll be good. I'll be so good. Just let me eat something. The world tilted. Harry gasped as something pulled at his insides, not his stomach, something deeper. Like a hook behind his navel, yanking hard. The cupboard walls blurred. Colors bled together. He heard a sound like tearing fabric, felt a rush of cold air that tasted like lightning and old stone, and then he was somewhere else. Harry hit cobblestones hard enough to knock the breath from his lungs. For a long moment, he just lay there, cheek pressed against cold, wet stone, trying to understand what had happened. His body ached. His head spun. The world smelled wrong, not cleaning supplies and dust but smoke and spices and something metallic he couldn't name. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. He was in an alley. A narrow one, barely wide enough for 2 people to walk abreast. The buildings on either side rose 3 and 4 stories, their upper floors leaning toward each other like old men sharing secrets. Flickering lights burned in windows, not electric lights, he realized with a distant sort of shock, but actual flames. Candles. Lanterns. The sky above was a thin strip of evening purple, the first stars just emerging. Harry's arms gave out. He collapsed onto his side, breathing hard, and tried to make sense of anything at all. I was in the cupboard. I was in the cupboard and now I'm not. That's impossible. But so was making cakes float. So was making his teacher's hair turn blue. So was ending up on the school roof when Dudley's gang was chasing him. Harry had stopped believing in impossible a long time ago. He lay on the cobblestones for several minutes, gathering strength he didn't have. His body felt like it belonged to someone else, heavy and unresponsive. But the cold was seeping into his bones, and some survival instinct older than thought whispered that he needed to move. Get up. Find food. Find shelter. Don't die. Simple goals. He could do simple. Harry dragged himself to his feet, swaying, and steadied himself against the nearest wall. The stone was rough under his palm, ancient and solid. Real. He was really here, wherever here was. The alley opened onto a larger street, and Harry limped toward it, one hand trailing along the wall for balance. What he saw when he emerged stopped him cold. People. Dozens of people, but not like any people he'd ever seen. Men and women in long robes that swept the ground, in pointed hats and cloaks with hoods. A woman walked past leading what looked like a miniature dragon on a leash. No, not a dragon, something else, something with too many legs and scales that shifted color as it moved. A shop window displayed broomsticks, actual broomsticks, arranged like they were sporting equipment. And everyone was staring at him. Or rather, they were staring, then quickly looking away. Hurrying past. Parents pulled children closer. A man in a bowler hat crossed to the other side of the street. Harry looked down at himself. His clothes were rags, Dudley's cast-offs, 3 sizes too big, stained and torn. His feet were bare. He was covered in grime and so thin his wrist bones jutted out like knobs. He looked like exactly what he was, a starving street child. And these people, with their fine robes and their strange creatures and their magic, because that's what this was, wasn't it? Magic, wanted nothing to do with him. Something cold settled in Harry's chest. Not surprise. Not hurt, exactly. Just, recognition. Same everywhere, then. Rich people don't want to see poor people. Even magic-rich people. His stomach cramped again, reminding him of more pressing concerns. Food. He needed food. Harry's eyes swept the street, cataloging. Bright shops with clean windows. Well-dressed customers. Nothing for him here. But at the far end of the street, the lights grew dimmer. The robes grew shabbier. The faces grew harder. That's where the scraps will be, he thought. That's where people won't ask questions. He started walking. The bright street gave way to narrower lanes, then to cramped alleys that twisted back on themselves like they were trying to hide. The cobblestones grew slick with moisture that wasn't quite rain. The shops changed, their windows darker, their signs painted in languages Harry didn't recognize, their wares strange and sometimes disturbing. A jar of eyeballs in one window. Bones arranged in patterns in another. A hand, a human hand, preserved somehow, fingers still twitching, displayed on a velvet cushion. Harry kept walking. He'd learned young that fear was a luxury. Fear was for people with full stomachs and warm beds, people who could afford to hesitate. Harry didn't hesitate. He moved through the shadowy streets with his eyes open and his mouth shut, looking for opportunity. A discarded meat pie behind a shop with smoke curling from its chimney. He ate it so fast he barely tasted it, 3-day hunger overwhelming everything else. It stayed down. Barely. A rain barrel with mostly clean water. He drank until his stomach ached for a different reason. A pile of old sacking behind a building that might have been an inn. He pulled it around himself, burrowing into the shadows between 2 large crates, and for the first time since he'd arrived, let himself stop. I'm somewhere else, he thought. Somewhere with magic. Somewhere the Dursleys can't find me. The thought should have been frightening. He was 7 years old, alone in a strange place, with no money, no friends, no idea how to get back. But getting back meant the cupboard. Getting back meant starving. Getting back meant Uncle Vernon's belt and Aunt Petunia's cruel words and Dudley's fists. I'm not going back, Harry decided. The certainty of it surprised him. Not a wish. Not a hope. A decision. Whatever this place is, whatever happens here, I'm not going back. He slept. Something prodded Harry's ribs. He came awake instantly, body tensed, ready to flee. A lifetime of deadly ambushes had trained that reflex deep. A face stared down at him, long-nosed, weathered, topped with a shapeless hat. The man attached to the face looked about 1,000 years old, with eyes that glittered like coins in the dim pre-dawn light. Well, the man wheezed. What be we here? A little lost mouse in the alley. Harry didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched and waited, calculating distance to the nearest escape route. The man's lips peeled back from yellow teeth. No need to be scared, little mouse. Old Borgin don't hurt children. Bad for business, that. He tilted his head. You look hungry. You look like someone who maybe needs a friend. Harry had been offered friendship before. By teachers who wanted him to inform on other students. By Dudley's gang members who wanted an easy target. By adults who looked at him with something that made his skin crawl. I don't need friends, Harry said. His voice came out rough from disuse. I need information. Borgin's eyebrows rose. Information, is it? And what information might a little mouse like you be wanting? Where am I? Knockturn Alley, boy. The part of magical London that good folk pretend doesn't exist. Borgin's grin widened. And what's a muggle child doing in Knockturn Alley, I wonder? No, wait, not muggle, are you? Muggle raised, maybe, but there's magic in you. I can smell it. Harry filed away the word. Muggle. Non-magical, probably. Is there a bank here? He asked. Borgin blinked. A bank? Somewhere people keep money. There's Gringotts, of course. The Goblin Bank. But I don't think they accept customers dressed in. He gestured at Harry's rags, that. Where is it? Borgin studied him for a long moment. Something shifted in those coin-bright eyes, surprise, maybe, or reassessment. Follow the alley north. There's a side entrance round the back, the discreet entrance, they call it. For those who don't want to be seen doing business. Harry nodded and stood, the sacking falling away. His legs were steadier now, the meat pie and water doing their work. What's your name, little mouse? Borgin called after him. Harry paused at the alley's mouth. He could give a false name. He probably should. But something made him turn back and meet the old man's eyes. Harry Potter. Borgin's face went pale. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Potter? But you're supposed to be. Harry didn't wait to hear what he was supposed to be. He walked into the shadows and disappeared. Gringotts' discreet entrance was exactly as advertised, a narrow door of black iron set into a wall that looked like solid stone until you got within arm's reach. No sign. No indication of what lay behind it. Just the door, and the sense of being watched by something old and patient. Harry pushed it open and stepped inside. The corridor beyond was cold and dark, lit only by torches that burned with pale blue flame. The floor was smooth marble, worn by centuries of footsteps. The walls were carved with images that seemed to move when Harry wasn't looking directly at them, battles, mostly. Small fierce warriors fighting much larger enemies. Winning. The corridor ended at a desk of black wood, behind which sat a creature unlike anything Harry had ever seen. It was small, smaller than him, though it somehow gave the impression of being much larger than its physical form. Its features were sharp, angular, pointed ears and a long nose and teeth that came to distinct points. Its eyes were dark and ancient, holding depths that made Harry's skin prickle. A goblin. It had to be. The word surfaced from some half-remembered story, a fairy tale Aunt Petunia had read to Dudley while Harry listened through the cupboard door. The goblin looked at Harry. Harry looked back. Neither spoke for a long moment. You are either very brave or very stupid, the goblin finally said. Its voice was rough, like stones grinding together. Children do not walk into Gringotts through the shadow door. I'm not a normal child, Harry said. That much is obvious. The goblin's eyes narrowed. What do you want, human child? My name is Harry Potter. Harry watched the goblin's face carefully, saw the flicker of recognition, the subtle shift in posture. I was told my parents left me money. I want to access it. The goblin leaned forward. Harry Potter. The boy who lived. The title dripped with something that might have been contempt or might have been amusement. And how do we know you are who you claim to be? Many have tried to access the Potter vaults. All have failed. Test me. The words came out before Harry fully considered them, but he didn't take them back. If there was a test, he would pass it. He would pass it because he had to, because the alternative was going back to the streets with nothing, back to the Dursleys eventually, back to the cupboard and the darkness and the slow death of starvation. The goblin's pointed teeth showed in what might have been a smile. Very well, Harry Potter. We shall test you. It gestured, and another goblin appeared from a side corridor, younger, if Harry was reading the species correctly, with sharper features and eyes that burned with barely concealed hostility. This is Grip Hook, the elder goblin said. He will administer your inheritance verification. Follow him. Grip Hook said nothing. He turned and walked away without checking to see if Harry followed. Harry followed. The deeper they went into Gringotts, the older everything became. The first levels had been worked stone, carved and polished. The lower levels were raw rock, the tunnels carved by something that left claw marks in solid granite. The air grew warmer despite the depth, and Harry could feel something. A pressure. A presence. Like the mountain itself was alive and watching. Grip Hook led him through corridors that branched and twisted, through caverns that glittered with embedded gems, past doors marked with symbols that made Harry's eyes water when he tried to focus on them. Finally, they emerged into a circular chamber lit by a column of white fire at its center. The inheritance chamber, Grip Hook said. His voice echoed strangely in the space. Here we determine who you truly are, and what you truly own. Harry stepped forward. What do I need to do? Grip Hook's lip curled slightly. Blood. 3 drops in the flame. If you are Harry Potter, the fire will confirm it. If you are not. He shrugged. The fire is hungry. It has not fed well in centuries. Harry didn't hesitate. He walked to the pillar of flame, pulled back his sleeve, and looked at Grip Hook expectantly. The goblin produced a small knife, wickedly sharp, and offered it handle first. 3 drops. No more, no less. Harry took the knife. The blade was cool against his skin, not the cold of metal but something deeper, older. He pressed the edge to his palm and drew it across in a quick, clean motion. It hurt less than Dudley's punches. Less than Uncle Vernon's belt. Blood welled up, dark red in the white firelight. Harry held his hand over the flame and let 3 drops fall. The fire screamed. There was no other word for it, a sound that wasn't sound, a cry that resonated in Harry's bones and teeth and the deepest parts of his brain. The column of white fire turned gold, then crimson, then black as night before exploding outward in a shower of sparks that somehow didn't burn. Words formed in the air, written in flames. Harry James Potter, son of James Charles Potter and Lily Rose Potter née Evans, heir to the noble and most ancient house of Potter, heir to the noble house of Peveril by blood right, heir to the house of Black by godfathers, will heir to the house of Slytherin by right of conquest. Harry stared at the words. They meant nothing to him, names without context, titles without meaning, but Grip Hook had gone absolutely still, his dark eyes fixed on the fiery script with an expression Harry couldn't read. Well, the goblin said finally, his voice strange. This is unexpected. What does it mean? It means, Mr. Potter, that you are considerably more than anyone anticipated. Grip Hook turned to look at him directly, and something had changed in the goblin's expression. Not respect, exactly. But the hostility had faded into something more complex. The Potter Vault is a significant fortune. The Peveril Vault has not been accessed in 500 years. The Black inheritance is contingent on certain conditions being met. And the Slytherin Vault. He trailed off, shaking his head. The Slytherin Vault what? Has not been opened since Salazar Slytherin himself sealed it over 1,000 years ago. Griphook's teeth showed in a grin that held no humor. You have inherited a complicated legacy, Mr. Potter. One that many would kill for. One that some already have. Harry absorbed this. The Potter Vault alone would be enough to buy food, shelter, safety. But the rest, for houses. For inheritances. 1,000 years of accumulated wealth. I want to see them, he said. All of them. Griphook tilted his head. That will take time. The Slytherin Vault alone requires rituals of access that have not been performed in living memory. Then start with Potter. The one I can access now. Very well. Griphook gestured toward a door that Harry could have sworn wasn't there a moment ago. This way, Mr. Potter. We have much to discuss. The Potter Vault was not what Harry had expected. He'd imagined coins, maybe. Piles of gold like a dragon's hoard. Instead, he found himself standing in a chamber the size of a small house, lined with shelves and cases and pedestals holding everything. Books. Thousands of books, bound in leather and metal and materials Harry couldn't identify. Weapons, swords and daggers and things that might have been wands. Jewelry that glowed with inner light. Portraits that watched him with curious painted eyes. Artifacts of glass and crystal and stone, some beautiful, some disturbing, all clearly valuable. And yes, gold. Mountains of gold coins, silver coins, bronze coins, more wealth than Harry could have imagined existed in the world. The monetary value of the Potter Vault currently stands at approximately 237 million galleons, Griphook said, consulting a parchment that had appeared in his hand. This includes liquid assets, property holdings, business investments, and outstanding debts owed to the Potter estate. Harry's mind stuttered. He had no context for the number, no idea what a galleon was worth, but 237 million of anything was a lot. The properties, Griphook continued, include Potter Manor in Wales, currently under preservation wards. A townhouse in London, currently occupied by unauthorized tenants. 17 rental properties in Diagon Alley, 11 in Hogsmeade, and... He paused, flipping through the parchment with an expression that might have been disbelief. And 3 buildings in Knockturn Alley, condemned and abandoned for the past 60 years. Harry's attention sharpened. Knockturn Alley. The Dark Market. The very same. Your great-great-grandfather purchased them during a financial crisis. They have been empty ever since. Griphook's eyes met his. The location makes them effectively worthless to most wizards. The reputation of Knockturn Alley means that no respectable business would operate there. But they're mine. They are indeed. Harry walked further into the vault, trailing his fingers along the spines of ancient books, the edges of display cases. His mind was working faster than it had in years, pieces clicking together like a puzzle he hadn't known he was solving. Knockturn Alley. The Dark Market. The place where the outcasts and criminals and monsters lived, where the magical world threw away everyone it didn't want. The place that had fed him when he was starving. The place that hadn't asked questions. I want to know everything, Harry said softly. About the Potters. About what they owned, what they did, who owed them. Everything. Griphook was silent for a moment. Then, that will require significant research. Time that you may not have. Harry turned to face the goblin. Why wouldn't I have time? Because, Mr. Potter, you have been missing for 7 years. The wizarding world believes you safe with your muggle relatives, hidden by powerful blood wards. Griphook's expression was unreadable. When it becomes known that you are here, that you have accessed your vaults, there are many who will be very interested in finding you. Then don't let it become known. Gringotts serves its clients with absolute discretion. But we are not the only ones watching. The moment you used the shadow door, certain parties were alerted to your presence. It is only a matter of time before they come looking. Harry considered this. Parties looking for him. People with agendas, with plans, with ideas about what the boy who lived should be and do. How much time? Hours, perhaps. A day at most. Not long. Not long at all. Harry looked around the vault again, at the accumulated wealth and power of generations, and made a decision. I need supplies. Clothes, food, books about magic. Things that will help me survive. He met Griphook's eyes. And I need you to tell me about the other vaults. The Peveril Vault, especially. What's in it? What does being heir to Peveril mean? Griphook's expression flickered. The Peveril line is old, Mr. Potter. Older than Hogwarts, older than the Ministry of Magic. The Peverils were among the first to codify magical practices in Britain. Their vault contains. He hesitated. Contains what? Knowledge. Artifacts. Things that have been sealed away because the modern world no longer understands them. Griphook's voice dropped lower. Things that whisper in the dark, Mr. Potter. Things that have been waiting for an heir for a very long time. Harry should have been frightened. He was 7 years old, alone in the depths of a goblin bank, being told about dark artifacts and ancient secrets. But Harry had lived in a cupboard under the stairs. He had starved and bled and survived things that should have broken him. And now he stood in a vault full of gold, with power he was only beginning to understand, and all he felt was. Finally. Finally, I have something. Finally, I can fight back. I want to see it, he said. The Peveril Vault. Whatever's in there. I want to see it all. Griphook studied him for a long moment. Harry couldn't read the goblin's expression, but something shifted in those dark eyes, some calculation being made, some assessment being completed. You are not what I expected, Harry Potter, Griphook said finally. What did you expect? A child. Frightened, confused, easily managed. The goblin's teeth showed in what was almost a smile. You are something else entirely. I'm a survivor, Harry said. It's all I know how to be. Griphook nodded slowly. Then perhaps we can do business after all. The Peveril Vault requires certain protocols, but for a client such as yourself. He paused. I believe exceptions can be made. Come, Mr. Potter. Let us see what your ancestors left you. The Peveril Vault was deeper still. They descended through passages that no longer looked carved, they looked grown, as if the stone had flowed into these shapes of its own accord. The air grew thick with something that wasn't quite magic but felt adjacent to it, a pressure that made Harry's ears pop and his vision blur at the edges. The Peverils were masters of death, Griphook said as they walked. Not necromancers, the distinction is important. They did not enslave the dead or violate natural law. They simply understood death in ways others did not. The boundary between life and death, the nature of the soul, the mechanics of transition. Is that why everyone looks at me strangely when they hear my name? Because I survived something I shouldn't have? Griphook glanced back at him. You know about that, then. The night your parents died. I know something happened. I don't know what. A dark wizard named Voldemort killed your parents and attempted to kill you. The killing curse, an unblockable, undodgeable spell of pure death, struck you directly. Griphook tapped his own forehead. It left a scar. It left you alive. This was supposed to be impossible. Harry's hand rose unconsciously to his forehead, to the lightning bolt scar he'd had as long as he could remember. The Dursleys had never explained it. He'd assumed it was from the car crash that supposedly killed his parents. Voldemort, he said slowly, testing the name. Is he still alive? That is a matter of considerable debate. His body was destroyed that night, but no one knows what became of his spirit. Many believe he will return someday. Griphook's voice was carefully neutral. Many are preparing for that eventuality. They reached a door. Unlike the others Harry had seen, this one was not stone or metal but something that looked almost like smoke made solid, constantly shifting and reforming. Symbols moved across its surface, appearing and disappearing too fast to read. The Peveril seal, Griphook said. Only one of Peveril blood can open it. Place your hand against the door and will it to open. Harry stepped forward. The smoke door felt cold against his palm, not painfully cold but cold in a way that went deeper than physical sensation, a chill that touched something beyond flesh. Open, he thought. The door dissolved. The chamber beyond was circular and vast, its ceiling lost in darkness above. Unlike the Potter vault with its organized shelves and displays, the Peveril vault looked like a library that had been frozen mid-catastrophe. Books were everywhere, stacked on tables, piled in corners, scattered across the floor as if their reader had just stepped away. Astronomical instruments clustered on one side, their brass fittings tarnished with age. A massive desk dominated the center of the room, covered in parchments that still held fresh ink despite the centuries that must have passed. And in the center of the desk, in a circle of cleared space, sat three objects, a wand, pale and ancient, that seemed to drink in the light. A ring, black stone in a simple gold band, that whispered at the edge of hearing. And a cloak, folded with impossible neatness, that seemed to shift between visible and invisible with each breath Harry took. The Deathly Hallows, Griphook breathed. The goblin's usual composure had cracked, his dark eyes wide with something that might have been fear or might have been awe. They were not legends. They were real. Harry didn't know the term, but he felt the pull of the objects regardless. They wanted him. They recognized him. Not as a thief or a stranger but as heir, something whispered in his mind. Finally. An heir. Mr. Potter. Griphook's voice was sharp with warning. Do not touch those artifacts. They are beyond dangerous. They are mine, Harry said. He reached for the cloak first. His fingers brushed the fabric, silk and shadow and something that felt like moonlight made tangible, and the world shifted. He could see Griphook more clearly now. Not just the goblin's physical form but the patterns of magic that surrounded him, the ancient protections woven into his jewelry, the faint traces of curses he'd survived. He could see the walls of the vault, and the words carved into them, and deeper still, the heartbeat of the mountain itself. He could see a figure standing in the corner that he was fairly certain hadn't been there before. Ah, said the figure. It looked like a man, tall, thin, draped in a robe that might have been black or might have been the color of empty space between stars. There you are. I've been waiting. Griphook spun, a blade appearing in his hand from somewhere. What, who, peace, little banker. I'm not here for you. The figure's attention remained fixed on Harry. It had no face that Harry could identify, no features at all, but somehow he knew it was smiling. Hello, heir. It's been a very long time since one of your line came to claim their birthright. Harry's grip on the cloak tightened. What are you? That's a complicated question. Your ancestors called me Death, but that's not quite accurate. I'm a representative. A liaison between states of being. The figure drifted closer, not walking, Harry realized, but simply becoming nearer. You touched the cloak. That opens a channel. We can speak now, you and I, in ways we couldn't before. You're not really Death. No. But I know him well. As did your ancestors. As, in time, will you. The figure gestured at the three objects on the desk. The Hallows were created to serve as bridges. The cloak conceals from Death's sight. The stone summons those who have passed. The wand. The wand is complicated. Powerful. Hungry. Harry looked at the pale wand, felt its pull like a fishhook in his chest. I don't need a hungry wand, he said slowly. I don't need to summon the dead. But concealment. Clever child. The figure sounded pleased. Yes. The cloak is the safest of the three. The kindest. It will hide you, protect you, serve you faithfully. The others. It made a gesture that might have been a shrug. The others require more from their wielders. What kind of more? The wand demands victory. It will serve the strongest, and only the strongest. If you are ever defeated while holding it, truly defeated, it will abandon you for your conqueror. Many have died learning this lesson. And the stone? The figure was silent for a long moment. The stone demands grief. It works best for those who have lost someone they cannot bear to be without. Those who use it lightly, find that the dead are not always pleased to be disturbed. And those who use it heavily find that the line between living and dead grows thin. Too thin. Harry considered this. The cloak, clearly. The others, maybe eventually. When he was stronger. When he understood more. I'll take the cloak, he said. For now. Wise. The figure began to fade, its already tenuous form dissolving like mist in sunlight. We will speak again, heir. There is much you need to learn, and time is shorter than you think. The old wards are breaking. Things that have slept for millennia are stirring. You have a role to play, Harry Potter. A choice to make. What choice? But the figure was gone. Harry stood in the silent vault, the invisibility cloak clutched in his hands, and tried to make sense of what had just happened. Griphook was staring at him with an expression Harry couldn't read. You saw something, the goblin said. Spoke to something. What was it? I don't know exactly. Something old. Something connected to these artifacts. And it just let you take the cloak. Harry looked down at the shimmering fabric in his hands. It felt right. Like it had been waiting for him specifically, marking time until he was ready. I don't think let is the right word, he said. I think this was always mine. Since before I was born. Griphook was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed, a harsh, grinding sound like stone on stone. You are going to be a very interesting client, Harry Potter, the goblin said. Very interesting indeed. Come. Let's get you outfitted and educated before the vultures arrive. They emerged from the Peveril vault an hour later, Harry laden with books and artifacts and a small fortune in easily carried gold. The invisibility cloak was wrapped around his shoulders, invisible to everyone but him, a constant reassuring weight. Griphook led him to a private chamber furnished with surprisingly comfortable chairs and a table laid with food. Actual food, bread and meat and cheese and fruits Harry couldn't identify. He forced himself to eat slowly, remembering what happened when starving bodies were overwhelmed, but it was hard. So hard. The properties in Knockturn Alley, he said between bites. Tell me about them. Griphook produced a parchment covered in diagrams. 3 buildings, here, here, and here. The central one was once a meeting hall of some kind. The others were residences or shops. All have been empty since your great-great-grandfather sealed them against trespass. Why did he buy them? The records don't say specifically, but the timing suggests an economic opportunity. A market crash made the properties available for a fraction of their value. Your ancestor purchased them, sealed them, and apparently planned to develop them later. Griphook's voice went dry. He died before he could complete whatever plan he had in mind. Harry studied the diagram. Knockturn Alley. The dark market. The place where the outcasts gathered, where the monsters hid, where the magical world threw away everyone it didn't want. Same as me, he thought. They threw me away too. Locked me in a cupboard like I was something shameful. What would it take to make those buildings livable again? Griphook's eyebrows rose. Livable? You intend to live in Knockturn Alley? I intend to do more than that. Harry pushed his plate aside and leaned forward. What do you know about the people there? The creatures, the outcasts, the ones no one else wants. I know they are desperate, dangerous, and distrustful. I know they survive by preying on each other when they cannot prey on legitimate society. I know the Ministry would burn the entire alley to the ground if they thought they could get away with it. And I know that desperate people are loyal to whoever helps them. Harry's voice was quiet but certain. I know that everyone needs something. I know that the people in Knockturn Alley have skills and knowledge that respectable society pretends doesn't exist. Griphook was staring at him again, that unreadable expression back in full force. What exactly are you planning, Mr. Potter? Harry looked down at his hands, small hands, child's hands, but clean now and no longer trembling with hunger. In a few hours, everything had changed. He had gold. He had knowledge. He had the cloak of invisibility wrapped around his shoulders like armor. But he also remembered. The cold of the streets. The gnawing pain of hunger. The way the respectable witches and wizards had looked away from a starving child, unwilling to even see him. The Dursleys had thrown him away. The wizarding world had done the same to Knockturn Alley. Everyone needs a home, Harry said slowly, the words coming from somewhere deep inside him. Somewhere they belong. Somewhere they're wanted. He met Griphook's eyes. I'm going to give them one. The goblin was silent for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression, not respect, exactly, but the beginning of something that might become respect if it was earned. That is an ambitious goal for a 7-year-old child. I stopped being a child the first time my uncle locked me in a cupboard to starve. Harry's voice held no self-pity, only statement of fact. Now I'm something else. I'm not sure what yet. But I know I'm not going to let anyone throw me away again. He stood, the cloak settling around him like a second skin. Let's start with the buildings. I want them habitable within the month. Whatever it costs. Griphook stood as well, something that might have been the ghost of a smile crossing his sharp features. Very well, Mr. Potter. I'll begin the arrangements. But there is one more thing you should know before we proceed. What? Your magical guardian. The one who was supposed to be caring for you all these years, who clearly did not. His name is Albus Dumbledore. He is the most powerful wizard in Britain, and he has very specific plans for Harry Potter. Harry absorbed this. Dumbledore. The name rang a faint bell, one of the books in the Potter vault had mentioned him. Headmaster of some magical school. Leader of the light. He'll come looking for me, Harry said. It wasn't a question. Almost certainly. The moment the tracking charms on you failed, which I suspect happened when you apparat to Diagon Alley, he would have been alerted. The goblins can keep your location secret for a time, but not indefinitely. Harry considered this. A powerful wizard. Specific plans. Coming to find him. Then I need to be ready when he arrives. He pulled the cloak tighter around him. I need to be strong enough that he can't just take me. You are 7 years old, Mr. Potter. No amount of gold can make you strong enough to defy Albus Dumbledore directly. Not directly, no. Harry's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. But there are other kinds of strength. You said it yourself, I have a complicated legacy. I'm heir to 4 houses, with all their resources and connections. That's leverage. Griphook's eyes gleamed. You think like a goblin, Mr. Potter. I think like a survivor. Harry turned toward the door. Now. About those properties in Knockturn Alley. The building was worse than Harry had expected. 3 stories of crumbling stone and rotting wood, the central structure of his Knockturn Alley properties. Windows boarded over. Roof sagging in the middle. A smell of mold and decay that hit like a physical blow when Griphook unsealed the door. But the bones were good. Harry could see it past the ruin, solid walls, deep foundations, rooms that had once been grand and could be again. The structural damage is extensive but not catastrophic, Griphook said, consulting a small device that clicked and whirred as he waved it around. 6 months of work with a goblin construction team. 3 months if you pay for a rush job. Rush job. Harry stepped over a pile of debris, moving deeper into the building. What was this place, originally? The records say it was a gathering hall for, the Twilight Court, whatever that was. Some sort of organization that dissolved 300 years ago. Before that, it was apparently a private residence. Before that. Griphook shrugged. The records become unclear. Harry ran his hand along the wall. The stone was cold and damp but solid. Beneath the grime, he could see carved patterns, not decoration, he realized, but writing. Some kind of script he didn't recognize. I want this restored, he said. But modernized. Rooms for people to live in. A kitchen. Heating. Whatever magic can do to make it comfortable. That will be expensive. I have expensive money. Griphook made a sound that might have been a laugh. Indeed you do. But there's another consideration, Mr. Potter. Knockturn Alley has residents. Informal ones. The abandoned buildings have become shelters for those with nowhere else to go. Harry turned to face him. How many? In this building alone? Perhaps 30. Across the alley, hundreds. Werewolves, vampires, squibs, criminals, the mad and the desperate. Griphook's expression was unreadable. You could evict them easily. The law is on your side. Harry thought about the alley behind the food shop. The discarded meat pie. The rain barrel. No, he said. I don't want to evict them. I want to give them somewhere better to go. You want to help them? The dregs of magical society? The dregs, Harry said quietly, are the only ones who helped me when I was starving in the streets. No one else even looked at me. He met Griphook's eyes. I'm going to build something here. Something for the people no one else wants. And I'm going to need people I can trust. And you think you'll find trustworthy allies among the monsters and criminals of Knockturn Alley? I think I'll find people who understand what it's like to be thrown away. People who know what it means when someone offers them a hand instead of a boot. Harry turned back to the building, to the carved walls and the high ceilings and the potential buried beneath decades of neglect. Everyone keeps telling me I'm special. The boy who lived. Heir to 4 houses. Powerful, wealthy, important. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. They're wrong. I'm not special. I'm just someone who survived. And I'm going to make a place where other survivors can survive too. Griphook was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, the goblin bowed, a shallow dip, barely a nod, but more than Harry had seen him offer anyone else. You are a strange child, Harry Potter, Griphook said. Strange and dangerous and possibly mad. But you are also, I think, someone worth watching. He straightened. Gringotts will accept your commission. The buildings will be restored to your specifications. In the meantime, I suggest you find somewhere safe to stay. Dumbledore's people will be searching by now. Let them search. Harry pulled the invisibility cloak over his head, feeling himself fade from view. They won't find me until I'm ready to be found. 3 hours later, Harry sat on the roof of his building, strange thought, and watched the sun rise over Knockturn Alley. The cloak kept him invisible and warm, wrapped around him like an embrace from someone who actually cared. Below, the alley was coming to life in its own peculiar way, shops opening, figures moving through the shadows, the day shift of darkness beginning its work. His people, Harry thought. Or they would be. The books from the Potter vault were spread around him, their pages fluttering in the pre-dawn breeze. He'd spent the night reading, absorbing, learning. The history of his family. The laws of the magical world. The politics of the great houses. And one book in particular, dog-eared and worn, Foundations of Influence, How to Build Power Without Armies. It was old, written by some Potter ancestor 3 centuries ago, but its principles were timeless. Control information. Provide what people need. Never make a threat you're not prepared to carry out. Always give your enemies a way to surrender gracefully. Harry had no armies. He had no powerful friends. He was 7 years old and alone in a world that saw him as either a symbol or a resource. But he had gold. He had information. He had 3 buildings in the heart of Knockturn Alley and a burning determination to never be helpless again. And he had the cloak. The Deathly Hallow. The artifact that had recognized him as its true owner and would hide him from anything until he was ready. They think they know who I am, Harry thought, watching the shadowy figures below. The boy who lived. The orphan hero. The chess piece to be moved around the board. He pulled a fresh parchment from his bag and began to write. A list. Goals. Steps. Step 1, build the refuge. A safe place for the lost and abandoned. Step 2, gather information. Know everything about everyone. Step 3, make myself indispensable. Be the one who solves problems. Step 4, when Dumbledore comes, be strong enough to negotiate. The sun crept higher. The alley below grew busier. And Harry Potter, 7 years old, invisible on a rooftop, began to plan his kingdom. Far away, in a castle perched on a cliff by a black lake, an old man stared at a device that had just gone silent. For 7 years, it had hummed along happily, assuring him that Harry Potter was safe and protected behind the blood wards of Privet Drive. For 7 years, he had told himself that the boy's placement was necessary, that the protection outweighed any discomfort, that when the time came Harry would be properly grateful. Now the device was dead. The connection severed. Harry Potter had vanished. Albus Dumbledore rose from his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 150 years. Fawkes, he said quietly, and the phoenix on its perch raised its head. We have a problem. The bird trilled a mournful note. Yes, Dumbledore agreed. A very serious problem indeed. Find him. Fawkes spread its wings and vanished in a burst of flame. And in Knockturn Alley, wrapped in an invisibility cloak that had been old when Hogwarts was young, Harry Potter smiled. Let them search, he thought. Let them wonder. Let them fear. The boy who lived is dead. The boy who survived has just begun. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Foundation's 6 months changed everything. Harry crouched on the edge of a rooftop, invisible beneath the cloak, and watched his kingdom take shape below. The central building, he'd started calling it the refuge in his head, and the name had stuck, rose 3 stories of restored stone and gleaming windows. Goblin construction crews had worked through the nights, their magic reshaping wood and mortar with an efficiency that still amazed him. The other 2 buildings flanked it like guards. One had become a boarding house, 30 small rooms that were always full. The other held shops on the ground floor, a pawnbroker, an apothecary, a repair service for magical items, with storage above. All of it his. All of it running. Harry was 7.5 years old, and he owned a small empire. The thought should have felt absurd. Instead, it felt like breathing. Like something he'd been born to do and was only now discovering. Below, a figure emerged from the refuge's main entrance, tall, thin, moving with the careful precision of someone who'd learned that attention meant danger. Mira Blackwood, formerly of no fixed address, now his building manager. A squib thrown out by her pureblood family at age 14, she'd survived 20 years in Knockturn Alley through sheer vicious intelligence. Harry had found her running an information brokering operation out of a condemned basement. He'd offered her something better, legitimate authority, steady pay, and the chance to matter. She'd been suspicious. Everyone in the alley was suspicious. But she'd also been tired of scraping, tired of hiding, tired of being nothing. "You're serious," she'd said, studying the contract he'd offered. "You actually want me to run this place?" "I want someone who knows the alley. Who the residents trust. Who won't be fooled by hard-luck stories." Harry had met her eyes steadily, letting her see that he meant every word. "I'm offering you a job. A real one. What you do with it is up to you." She'd taken the job. And she'd been worth every canute. Harry watched her cross the street to speak with a vendor setting up a cart, one of the food sellers he'd licensed to operate in the small square he'd created where the three buildings met. The conversation was brief, professional. Mira checking that everything was in order. Making sure his people were cared for. His people. The phrase still felt strange. 6 months ago, he'd had nothing and no one. Now he had 37 permanent residents in the refuge, another 50 in the boarding house, and a network of informants and allies that stretched across Knockturn Alley. Not bad for a child who'd started with nothing but gold and stubbornness. A flicker of movement caught his attention, a cloaked figure entering the alley from the Diagon side, moving with the careful casualness of someone trying not to be noticed. Harry tracked the figure's progress, noting the quality of the cloak, the way they walked, the slight bulge at the hip that suggested a wand holster. Or had to be. The third one this week. They were getting more frequent, these visitors from the respectable world. Word had spread that something was changing in Knockturn Alley, that someone was consolidating power, cleaning up the worst of the criminal elements, creating order out of chaos. The Ministry didn't like it. The Ministry didn't like anything they couldn't control. Harry smiled beneath the cloak and dropped silently from the rooftop, landing in the shadows of a narrow alley. Time to see what this particular visitor wanted. The Auror's name was Williamson. Mid-30s, career bureaucrat, assigned to monitor potential dark activity in Knockturn Alley. Harry had learned all this within an hour of the man's first visit 2 months ago. Mira's information network was nothing if not thorough. What Mira didn't know, what no one knew, was that Harry followed every visitor personally. Invisible and silent, he tracked their movements, listened to their conversations, built a picture of who they were and what they wanted. Knowledge was power. Harry had read that in a dozen books, but he'd known it long before, known it in the Dursley household, where understanding Vernon's moods could mean the difference between a meal and a beating. Williamson wandered through the alley with the air of a man checking boxes on a form. He peered into shop windows, made notes on a small pad, occasionally stopped to question a resident who looked too slow to escape. The questions were always the same: had they seen anything suspicious? Did they know who owned the new buildings? Had anyone approached them about illegal activities? The answers were always the same too: nothing. No one. Never. 6 months ago, the residents of Knockturn Alley would have sold each other out for a warm meal. Now they closed ranks like family. Not because Harry had threatened them, he'd never threatened anyone who didn't threaten him first, but because he'd given them something worth protecting. A home. A purpose. A chance. Williamson's patrol took him past the refuge's main entrance. He paused, studying the building with a frown. The restoration was too good, too professional. It didn't match the decay around it. It raised questions. Harry drifted closer, close enough to hear the man mutter under his breath. Someone spending serious gold here. Someone with resources. Someone who doesn't want to be found. Williamson shook his head. Damn goblins won't tell us anything. Client confidentiality, they say. As if laws apply to, can I help you? Mira had appeared at the refuge's entrance, her expression politely neutral in a way that somehow conveyed absolute hostility. Williamson straightened, professional smile snapping into place. Just doing a routine patrol, ma'am. Checking that everything's in order. Everything is in order. As it was last week. And the week before. Yes, well. The ministry has concerns about recent changes in this area. New construction, new businesses, a suspicious decrease in criminal activity. His smile turned patronizing. Someone is clearly investing heavily here. The ministry would very much like to know who. The ministry is welcome to file the appropriate inquiries through the appropriate channels. Myra's voice could have frozen fire. Until then, this is private property. Legally registered, fully permitted, and none of your concern. Williamson's smile flickered. You have quite the attitude for someone who lives in Knockturn Alley. I have quite the attitude for someone who's been harassed by ministry officials for 20 years because my blood wasn't pure enough for my family. Myra stepped forward, and something in her posture made Williamson take an involuntary step back. I know my rights. I know the law. And I know that you have no authority to question residents, search property, or demand information without proper documentation. I'm just you're trying to intimidate people who you think can't fight back. It's what the ministry has always done. Myra's eyes were hard as flint. But things are changing here. We have protections now. Resources. Friends who know how to make complaints heard in the right ears. Williamson's face reddened. Are you threatening a ministry official? I'm educating one. Now get off my property before I file a harassment complaint with the DMLE. She smiled, thin and sharp. I hear Director Bones takes such complaints very seriously. Harry watched Williamson retreat, his professional demeanor crumbling into barely concealed fury. The man would be back, his type always came back, but he'd be more careful next time. More subtle. Good. Subtle was easier to counter than stupid. Harry made a mental note to increase Myra's salary. She'd more than earned it. Night fell over Knockturn Alley like a familiar friend. Harry had learned to love the darkness in the past 6 months. Not the darkness of the cupboard, that had been suffocating, hopeless, a darkness that pressed down until you couldn't breathe. This was different. This was the darkness of possibility, of movement, of a world that came alive when respectable people went to sleep. He sat in his office on the refuge's top floor, reviewing the day's reports by wandlight. Myra's summary of the Auror visit. Inventory lists from the apothecary. A coded message from one of his information brokers about unusual activity near the ministry. And one letter that didn't fit any category, a request for a meeting from someone who signed themselves only as a friend. Harry studied the handwriting. Elegant, old-fashioned, written with a quill rather than a self-inking pen. The parchment was expensive. The seal on the envelope had been blank, no family crest, no identifying mark. Someone powerful enough to afford quality. Someone cautious enough to hide their identity. Someone who knew that Harry existed and where to find him. The list of candidates was troublingly short. A knock at the door. Harry slipped the letter beneath a stack of mundane paperwork. Come in. Borgin entered, hat in hands, wearing his most obsequious smile. The old shopkeeper had become one of Harry's most reliable sources, not because he was trustworthy, but because Harry understood exactly how untrustworthy he was. Young master, Borgin wheezed. I have information you'll want to hear. Then share it. The Mulciber brothers. They've been making noise about your territory. Saying you're too young, too weak, that someone should teach you a lesson. Borgin's smile turned greasy. They're planning something. I don't know what exactly, but they've been hiring muscle. Rough types from Manchester. The Mulciber brothers. Harry knew them by reputation, former Death Eater supporters who'd avoided Azkaban through a combination of bribery and strategic memory modification. They ran a protection racket in the northern part of the alley, squeezing money from businesses too small to fight back. Harry had been expecting them to make a move eventually. He'd been taking their customers, after all, offering better terms, actual protection, a system that worked for everyone instead of just the strong. How many muscle? 6, maybe 8. Nasty pieces of work. The Mulsabers are paying good gold. When? Tomorrow night, I think. They're meeting at the Hanged Man to finalize plans. Borgen's eyes glittered. I could tell you more if I happened to be there. For a small consideration, of course. Harry reached into his desk and withdrew a small pouch of galleons. Be there. Learn everything. Come to me before they move. Borgen pocketed the gold with practiced speed. Always a pleasure doing business, young master. Always a pleasure. After the old man left, Harry sat in silence for a long moment. The Mulsaber brothers. His first real challenge. Everything up to now had been building, establishing infrastructure, recruiting allies, creating systems. But this was different. This was someone actively trying to destroy what he'd created. He couldn't let them succeed. Not just for his own sake, but for everyone who trusted him. The residents of the refuge. Mira and her staff. All the people who'd looked at a 7-year-old child offering hope and decided to believe. Harry pulled out a fresh parchment and began to write. He had plans to make. The Hanged Man was exactly the sort of establishment its name suggested, dark, dirty, and reeking of despair. It catered to the worst elements of Knockturn Alley, the ones even other criminals avoided. Harry slipped through the door under his cloak, navigating between tables of hunched figures and avoiding the puddles of substances he preferred not to identify. The Mulsaber brothers held court in a back room, visible through a half-open door. Marcus Mulsaber was the larger of the two, a mountain of a man with hands like shovels and a face that looked like it had been used as a punching bag in one. His brother Thaddeus was smaller, sharper, with the quick eyes of a predator assessing prey. 8 hired thugs surrounded them, exactly as Borgen had reported. Large men, all of them, with the look of people who hurt others for money and enjoyed their work. The little brat thinks he can just waltz in and take over, Marcus was saying, his voice a low rumble. 7 years old. Hasn't even got a wand yet. One good scare and he'll run crying back to wherever he came from. The goblins are backing him, Thaddeus said. His voice was softer, more dangerous. That means money. Lots of money. We need to be careful. Careful is for cowards. We hit the refuge tomorrow night. Burn it to the ground. Send a message. Marcus's smile revealed teeth that were mostly gold replacements. Anyone else gets ideas about playing hero in our territory, they'll think twice. The residents can burn with it for all I care. Squibs and werewolves and other trash. No one will miss them. Harry's hands clenched beneath the cloak. 37 people in the refuge. Men, women, children, a family of werewolves had moved in just last week, grateful beyond words for a place that didn't care about their curse. These men wanted to burn them alive. No, Harry thought. No, you don't get to do that. Not to my people. He slipped out of the Hanged Man and into the night, his mind racing. He couldn't fight the Mulsabers directly. 10 armed wizards against one wandless child, the math didn't work. But fighting wasn't his only option. Harry had spent 6 months learning the unofficial rules of Knockturn Alley. Who owed whom? Who hated whom? Where the bodies were buried, sometimes literally. The Mulsabers had enemies. Everyone had enemies. And Harry had spent a lot of gold making sure he knew exactly who those enemies were. Time to call in some favors. The vampire found him at midnight. Harry was waiting on the roof of the refuge, visible for once, the cloak folded in his lap. He'd sent the message through Borgen, knowing it would reach the right ears. She materialized from shadow, one moment empty air, the next a woman of impossible beauty and terrible presence. Pale skin, dark hair, eyes that glowed faintly red in the darkness. She moved like water, like smoke, like something that had never been human no matter what her form suggested. You are the child who owns this building, she said. Her voice was silk over steel. The one they call the boy who lived. I'm Harry Potter. The rest is just stories. The vampire smiled, revealing fangs that glinted in the starlight. All power is stories, child. Surely you know that by now. Harry inclined his head, acknowledging the point. You're the Pale Lady. You control the blood trade in Knockturn Alley. The Mulcibers have been encroaching on your territory for years. They have. The Pale Lady drifted closer, her feet not quite touching the roof. They are inconvenient. Their protection racket disrupts my supply lines. Their thugs harass my vessels. I have considered dealing with them myself, but... She spread her hands, an eerily human gesture. Vampire politics are complicated. Open warfare attracts attention I cannot afford. What if someone else dealt with them for you? The red eyes sharpened. I'm listening. The Mulcibers are planning to attack the refuge tomorrow night. Burn it down, kill everyone inside. Harry kept his voice steady, though his heart was racing. I'm going to stop them. But I could use help making sure they don't try again. And in return? In return, I offer an alliance. The refuge becomes neutral ground, no hunting, no turning, no blood trade of any kind. In exchange, you get priority access to any information my network gathers about threats to your operations. And when the Mulcibers fall, you can have whatever pieces of their territory you want. The Pale Lady was silent for a long moment. Harry couldn't read her expression. Vampires didn't emote like humans, their faces masks of perfect stillness. You are very young to be playing such games, she said finally. I'm very young to have survived what I've survived. Harry met her ancient eyes without flinching. Does my age matter if my offer is good? No. A smile, cold and beautiful. It does not. Very well, Harry Potter. You have your alliance. I will ensure that the Mulcibers' hired muscle finds other employment before tomorrow night. The brothers themselves are yours to deal with as you see fit. And if I fail? Then I will be interested to see what eats you. The Pale Lady began to fade into shadow. Try not to disappoint me, child. I so rarely find mortals interesting. She was gone. Harry let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. One piece in place. Now for the others. The morning brought unwelcome visitors. Harry was reviewing supply lists in his office when Mira burst through the door, her usual composure shattered. We have a problem. A big one. Show me. She led him to the refuge's ground floor, where a crowd had gathered near the entrance. Harry slipped on the cloak before anyone could see him, best if his residents didn't know exactly how young their mysterious benefactor was. At the center of the crowd stood a man in shabby robes, his face lined with exhaustion and something darker. His eyes were yellow, not jaundiced, but actually yellow, the color of a wolf's gaze. I told you, I'm looking for work, the man was saying. Any kind of work. I heard there were opportunities here. There are, Mira replied carefully. But we need to know who we're dealing with. Name. The man hesitated. Remus. Remus Lupin. Harry went very still beneath the cloak. Lupin. He knew that name. It had been in the Potter Vault records, one of his father's closest friends, named as an alternate guardian in a will that had apparently been ignored. One of the people who should have taken care of him and hadn't. I can do anything, Lupin continued, desperation creeping into his voice. Manual labor, bookkeeping, tutoring, I was a professor once. I just need a chance. Please. Harry studied the man, cataloging details. The threadbare robes. The premature gray in his hair. The yellow eyes that marked him unmistakably as a werewolf. Remus Lupin. His father's friend. His potential guardian. Reduced to begging for work in Knockturn Alley because no one in the respectable world would hire a monster. Where were you? Harry thought. When I was starving in a cupboard, where were you? But he already knew the answer. Lupin had been here, or somewhere like here. Surviving on the margins. Fighting for scraps. Just as thrown away as Harry had been. The anger didn't disappear, exactly. But it made room for something else. Recognition. Understanding. We're the same, Harry realized. Both discarded. Both surviving. He slipped away from the crowd and found a quiet corner where he could remove the cloak. Then he walked back to the entrance, letting the crowd part around him. Mira, he said. Give Mr. Lupin a room. 3rd floor, the one with the reinforced door. Lupin turned, and his yellow eyes widened with shock. But you're just a child. I'm the owner of this building. And you need a place to stay during the full moon. Harry met his eyes steadily. The room is warded. You won't be able to hurt anyone. How do you know about your eyes? Your scars. The timing of your arrival, the moon is in 2 days. Harry kept his voice flat, giving nothing away. I'm not afraid of werewolves, Mr. Lupin. I have several living here already. The question is whether you're willing to accept help from a child. Lupin's face cycled through several expressions, shock, confusion, something that might have been hope. You're not what I expected. I never am. Harry turned to go. Mira will get you settled. We'll talk more after the moon. Wait. Lupin's voice cracked. Please. Who are you? Harry paused at the door. He could lie. He probably should lie. But something about this man, this broken, desperate man who'd been his father's friend, made him want to tell the truth. My name is Harry Potter, he said quietly. And I think you knew my parents. He walked away before Lupin could respond. The pale lady had kept her word. Harry watched from the shadows as the Mulciber's hired muscle abandoned their posts one by one. Some received better offers, gold from sources they couldn't trace. Others received warnings, threats from shadows that spoke with too many voices. By sunset, the brothers were alone. Almost time. Harry had spent the day preparing. Messages sent to key allies. Traps laid in strategic locations. Information planted with sources who would spread it exactly where he needed. The Mulcibers thought they were attacking a defenseless target. They were walking into a web. Night fell. Harry positioned himself on a rooftop overlooking the approach to the refuge, invisible and patient. Below, the alley had gone quiet, word had spread that something was happening, and the smart residents had found reasons to be elsewhere. At 10 o'clock, the Mulcibers appeared. They came alone, as Harry had expected. Pride wouldn't let them admit they needed help against a child, and greed wouldn't let them share whatever they planned to take from the refuge's ruins. Marcus led the way, wand drawn, moving with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never faced real opposition. Thaddeus followed 2 steps behind, watchful, suspicious. They reached the square between Harry's 3 buildings. Stopped. Looked around. Where is everyone? Thaddeus muttered. This place is usually crawling with trash. Probably hiding. Heard we were coming. Marcus grinned. Smart. Won't save them. He raised his wand toward the refuge, mouth opening to speak an incantation. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, Harry's voice, amplified by a charm Mira had taught him, bouncing off the stone walls until it seemed to fill the entire square. Both brothers spun, wands searching for a target. Who's there? Show yourself. In a moment. First, I want you to understand something. Harry kept his voice calm, almost conversational. You came here to burn down my building. To kill my people. To send a message that no one challenges the Mulciber brothers. Damn right, Marcus growled. And when I find you, you won't find me. I'm better at hiding than you are at seeking. But that's not the point. Harry paused, letting the silence stretch. The point is that I know everything about you. I know about the shipment of illegal potions ingredients you're smuggling through the northern gate next Tuesday. I know about the ministry official you've been bribing to look the other way. I know about the body buried beneath your warehouse, the one you told everyone ran away. Thaddeus had gone pale. Marcus was turning slowly, wand still raised, searching. Here's what's going to happen, Harry continued. You're going to leave. Not just this square, Knockturn Alley entirely. You're going to find somewhere else to run your business. Somewhere far away from my people. And if we don't? Marcus's voice was a snarl. Then everything I know becomes public. The Aurors. The Prophet. The goblins who handle your money, I hear they take a dim view of clients who lie about their assets. Harry let that sink in. You have enemies, Marcus. People you've hurt, cheated, threatened. Right now, they're too afraid to move against you. But if I release what I know... You're bluffing, Thaddeus said, but his voice wavered. Am I? Harry reached into his pocket and pulled out a parchment, a detailed accounting of the Mulciber's criminal enterprise, complete with names, dates, and locations. He'd spent weeks compiling it from a dozen different sources. I have 30 copies of this. Sealed, spelled to open if anything happens to me or my people. One is already with the goblins. One is with a certain reporter at the Prophet. The others. He let the parchment flutter down from the rooftop, landing at Marcus's feet. Read it. Then decide if you want to test me. Marcus snatched up the parchment. As he read, his face went from red to white to a shade of gray Harry had never seen on a living person. This is, how did you, I'm very good at finding things out. Harry finally dropped from the rooftop, landing silently in the shadows. He didn't reveal himself fully, just enough that they could see a small figure in the darkness, wrapped in something that seemed to eat the light. Now. Do we have an understanding? The brothers exchanged a look. Harry could see the calculation happening. Could they fight? Could they win? Could they call his bluff? You're just a child, Marcus said finally. You can't, I'm the child who took half your territory in 6 months. I'm the child who turned your hired muscle against you in a single night. I'm the child who knows every secret you've ever tried to bury. Harry's voice hardened. And I'm the child who will destroy you if you threaten my people again. Silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, Thaddeus lowered his wand. Marcus. We should go. But, he's not bluffing. Thaddeus's voice was flat, defeated. Look at that document. Look at what he knows. We can't fight this. Marcus's face contorted with rage, but he wasn't stupid. Just brutal. And brutal men learn to recognize when they were outmatched. This isn't over, he snarled. Yes, Harry said quietly. It is. He watched them leave. Watched them disappear into the dark streets of Knockturn Alley, heading for the boundary that would take them out of his territory. Only when they were gone did he let himself sag against the wall, exhaustion hitting like a wave. He'd won. His first real battle, and he'd won. But there would be others. There would always be others. That's fine, Harry thought, straightening up. I'll beat them too. The next morning, Remus Lupin was waiting outside Harry's office. He looked different in daylight, still worn, still tired, but something had shifted in his posture. He stood straighter. His eyes, though still yellow, held something other than despair. May I come in? Harry nodded and stepped aside. Lupin entered, looking around at the modest office with its practical furniture and overflowing bookshelves. This isn't what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Something grander, maybe. You own this entire building. You face down the Mulciber brothers without a wand. Lupin's voice cracked slightly. You're 7 years old. 7.5. A sound escaped Lupin, half laugh, half sob. James would have said the same thing. He was always so precise about his age. Harry sat behind his desk, gesturing for Lupin to take the chair across from him. Tell me about my father. Lupin stopped, struggling. I don't know where to start. James he was my best friend. One of my best friends. He accepted me when no one else would. He became an animagus just so he could be with me during the full moon. An animagus? Someone who can transform into an animal at will. James could become a stag. Lupin's eyes went distant. He called himself Prongs. It was a different time. Before the war. Before everything went wrong. Harry absorbed this. His father could turn into a stag. His father had friends who'd loved him enough to break the law for him. His father had been a real person, not just a name on a family tree. Why didn't you come for me? The question came out before Harry could stop it. You were named as a guardian. In my parents' will. Why did you let them send me to the Dursleys? Lupin flinched like he'd been struck. I tried. Merlin, Harry, I tried. But I'm a werewolf. The Ministry won't let werewolves have custody of children. And Dumbledore said, what did Dumbledore say? That you were safe. Protected by blood magic. That it was better for you to grow up away from the magical world, away from the fame and the pressure. Lupin's voice turned bitter. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Because believing him was easier than fighting him. Harry considered this. Dumbledore again. The man who was supposed to protect him and had instead abandoned him to abuse. Where were you going to go? Harry asked. After here, I mean. If I hadn't given you a room. I don't know. South, maybe. There are fewer werewolf hunters in France. Lupin's hands clenched in his lap. I've been surviving. Just surviving. For years now. Ever since James and Lily died. Ever since Sirius, he stopped abruptly. Ever since Sirius what? Nothing. It's not, Lupin shook his head. Sirius Black was our other friend. Your godfather. He's in Azkaban now. He betrayed your parents to Voldemort. The words hit Harry like cold water. His godfather. A betrayer. In prison. But something didn't fit. If Sirius had betrayed his parents, why had Harry inherited the Black fortune? The inheritance test had been clear, heir to the House of Black by Godfather's will. Are you sure? Harry asked slowly. That he betrayed them? Everyone says. Lupin stopped. Something flickered in his eyes. I never asked. When they arrested him, when they threw him in Azkaban, I never asked for proof. I just believed it. Because everyone said so. Harry filed this away for later investigation. Another mystery. Another thread to pull. I want to offer you a job, he said. Lupin blinked at the change of subject. A job? I need someone I can trust. Someone who knew my parents, who understands the magical world, who can teach me things I can't learn from books. Harry leaned forward. I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you purpose. Purpose? This place, the refuge, it's more than just buildings. It's an idea. A place where people who've been thrown away can find a home. Harry gestured at the window, at the alley beyond. Werewolves, squibs, vampires, half-breeds, everyone the magical world doesn't want. I'm giving them somewhere to belong. Lupin was staring at him with an expression Harry couldn't read. You're 7 years old. You keep saying that. Does it matter? It should. Lupin's voice dropped to a whisper. You should be playing with toys. Going to school. Having a childhood. I never had a childhood. The Dursleys made sure of that. Harry kept his voice steady, though the old anger burned beneath the words. So I'm making something else instead. Something better. Silence stretched between them. Lupin's yellow eyes were bright with unshed tears. What would you want me to do? He asked finally. Teach me. About magic, about politics, about my parents. Help me understand the world I'm trying to change. Harry paused. And when the time comes, help me protect the people who depend on me. Lupin was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Your father would be proud of you, he said softly. And furious. Absolutely furious that you've had to become this. But proud. Will you help me? Lupin reached across the desk and clasped Harry's hand. His grip was warm, strong, the grip of someone who'd finally found something to hold on to. Yes, he said. I'll help you. The days after the Mulciber confrontation were busy ones. Word spread quickly through Knockturn Alley, the child who owned the refuge had defeated the protection racket. Not through violence, there hadn't been a single spell cast, but through something more dangerous. Knowledge. Leverage. The ability to destroy someone without lifting a wand. Harry found himself fielding requests from across the alley. Business owners wanted protection, real protection, not the kind that came with threats and weekly payments. Residents wanted to know if there was room in the boarding house. Even a few of the less savory elements came asking about employment, attracted by the promise of steady work and someone who actually paid on time. Harry said yes more often than he said no. Building an organization meant building loyalty, and loyalty came from treating people well. But he was also careful. Not everyone who came asking was genuine. Some were plants, sent by rival factions to gather information. Others were ministry informants, trying to identify whoever was consolidating power. Harry learned to read them, to sort the genuine from the suspicious, to give just enough access to seem trusting while keeping his real operations hidden. The Pale Lady visited once, appearing in his office without warning as vampires were wont to do. You handled the Mulcibers well, she said, her ancient eyes studying him with something that might have been approval. Better than I expected. I had help. Yes. My help. She smiled, cold and beautiful. Don't forget that, child. Our alliance is valuable, but it is not eternal. Disappoint me, and I will find other investments for my attention. I understand. Good. She faded into shadow, gone as quickly as she'd come. Harry made a note to study vampire politics more carefully. He needed to understand her motivations, her vulnerabilities, her goals. The alliance was useful, but alliances could shift. Everything could shift. That was the first lesson of Knockturn Alley. A week after the Mulciber incident, Borgin appeared with news. There's talk, the old shopkeeper wheezed, settling uninvited into a chair across from Harry's desk. Talk about you, young master. People are asking questions. What kind of questions? Who you are. Where you came from. How a child managed to accomplish what grown wizards couldn't. Borgin's eyes glittered. Some are saying you're a front, that there's an adult behind the scenes, pulling strings. Others say you're touched by darkness, possessed by some ancient spirit. Harry considered this. The rumors weren't surprising, he'd known they would spread eventually. But they could be useful if managed correctly. What do you say, Borgin? Me? The old man's smile was oily. I say you're exactly what you appear to be. A very unusual child who's going to do very unusual things. He leaned forward. I also say that people are starting to pay attention. Important people. The kind who might decide you're too dangerous to leave alone. Names? Not yet. But I'm listening. Borgin tapped the side of his nose. For a consideration, of course. Harry slid a pouch of gold across the desk. Keep listening. I want to know the moment anyone important starts asking about me. Always a pleasure, young master. Borgin made the gold disappear with practiced ease. Always a pleasure. The consideration Borgin mentioned proved valuable 3 days later. Harry was reviewing reports in his office when Mira knocked sharply on the door. Visitor, she said, her voice tight. Important one. She came through the front door. The front door of the alley. The front door of the refuge. Walked right in like she owned the place. Myra's expression was grim. She's asking for you by name, Harry. Your full name. Harry's heart rate spiked, but he kept his face calm. Description. 50s. Sharp features. Monocle. Looks like she eats politicians for breakfast and picks her teeth with their bones. Harry knew that description. He'd studied profiles of every important figure in magical Britain, building a mental map of who held power and how they used it. Amelia Bones, he said. Head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Should I tell her you're not available? Harry considered it. Bones wasn't someone he could avoid forever, she was too well connected, too competent. Better to meet her on his terms than wait for her to force a confrontation. No. Bring her up. He straightened his robes, checked that his wand holster was empty, he still hadn't obtained a proper wand, and arranged his face into something approaching neutrality. Let's see what the department wants with a child. Amelia Bones entered his office like she entered everything, with purpose, directness, and an air of barely contained impatience. She was exactly as Mira had described, sharp-featured, stern, radiating competence like heat from a forge. Her eyes swept the room once, cataloging everything, before settling on Harry. Mr. Potter, she said. You're younger than the report suggested. The reports were accurate. People just don't believe them. Harry gestured to the chair across from his desk. Please, sit. Can I offer you tea? No tea. Bones sat, her posture military straight. I'll be direct, Mr. Potter. I'm here because something unusual is happening in Knockturn Alley, and all evidence suggests you're at the center of it. Unusual how? Crime rates have dropped 40% in 6 months. Protection rackets are collapsing. Businesses that have operated in the shadows for decades are suddenly paying taxes and filing proper permits. Bones's monocle gleamed as she studied him. Either someone's cleaning house, or someone's consolidating. I'm here to find out which. Harry leaned back in his chair, letting himself look thoughtful. Does it matter? Crime is down. Isn't that what the ministry wants? The ministry wants order. Order requires understanding. Right now, no one understands what's happening here, and that makes certain people nervous. Certain people like Minister Fudge. Something flickered in Bones's eyes. The minister has expressed concern about unauthorized power structures emerging in sensitive areas. And you've been sent to assess the threat. I've sent myself. The official investigation is being run by idiots who wouldn't recognize real power if it hexed them in the face. Bones's voice turned dry. I prefer to form my own conclusions. Harry studied her. This was unexpected, Bones coming herself, admitting that she was operating outside official channels. Either she was being honest, or she was very good at appearing honest. Either way, she was dangerous. What do you want to know? Harry asked. Everything. But let's start with the basics. Bones pulled out a self-inking quill and a small notebook. How did a 7-year-old child come to own 3 buildings in Knockturn Alley? Inheritance. The properties belong to my family. I simply chose to use them. And the money to restore them? The employees? The network of contacts you've clearly developed. Also inheritance. The Potter fortune is substantial. The Potter fortune is supposed to be held in trust until you come of age. Bones's eyes narrowed. Unless you found some way around that restriction. The goblins manage my accounts. I suggest you direct questions about financial matters to them. I have. They were remarkably uninformative. Bones made a note. How did you come to be in Knockturn Alley in the first place? The official records show you residing with your Muggle relatives in Surrey. Harry weighed his options. Lying was risky. Bones struck him as someone who would verify everything he said. But the truth was also dangerous. I left my relatives home 6 months ago, he said carefully. The circumstances of my departure are personal. Personal how? They were starving me. I ran away. Harry kept his voice flat. I ended up here. I decided to stay. Bones's quill stopped moving. She looked at him, really looked, with eyes that had seen decades of crime scenes and victims. They were abusing you, she said. It wasn't a question. They were doing what the ministry allowed them to do. No one ever checked on me. No one ever asked if I was safe. Harry met her gaze. So I stopped waiting to be rescued and rescued myself. Silence stretched between them. Bones's expression had shifted, something harder and colder settling into her features. The placement was approved at the highest levels, she said quietly. Dumbledore himself vouched for your safety. Then Dumbledore was wrong. Or lying. Harry shrugged. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm not going back. The law says my magical guardian has the right to determine my residence. My magical guardian is Albus Dumbledore. If he wants me to leave, he can come and tell me himself. Harry's voice hardened. Until then, I'm staying exactly where I am. Bones studied him for a long moment. Harry couldn't read her expression, but something had changed in the way she was looking at him. You're not what I expected, Mr. Potter. People keep saying that. I mean it as a compliment. Bones closed her notebook and stood. I came here expecting to find a puppet, some crime lord using a child as a front. Instead, I find. She shook her head. I don't know what I find. Something new. Is that a problem? That depends. Bones moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the frame. I'm going to be watching you, Mr. Potter. Not because I think you're a threat, but because I think you might be something rarer. An opportunity. An opportunity for what? Change. Bones's voice was soft, almost gentle. The magical world is rotting, Mr. Potter. Corruption in the ministry. Prejudice enshrined in law. A society that throws away anyone who doesn't fit the approved mold. She gestured at the window, at the alley beyond. You're building something here. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's different. And right now, different is what we need. She left without another word. Harry sat alone in his office for a long time, thinking about what she'd said. An opportunity for change. It wasn't what he'd set out to create. He'd just wanted to survive, to build something safe, to never be helpless again. But maybe that was enough. Maybe survival was the first step towards something larger. Harry pulled out a fresh parchment and began to write. There was so much still to do. 2 weeks later, another visitor came to the refuge. Harry was meeting with Lupin. Their daily sessions had become a fixture, 2 hours each morning covering magical theory, history, politics, everything Harry needed to know, when Mira appeared at the door with an expression he'd never seen before. Harry. You need to come downstairs. Now. The urgency in her voice brought both of them to their feet. They found the refuge's common room filled with residents, all staring at a woman who stood in the center of the space like she'd been carved from ice. Young, maybe 25, with features that seemed to shift subtly when Harry looked away. Her hair was a vibrant pink that clashed magnificently with her practical aura robes. I'm looking for whoever's in charge here, she was saying to no one in particular. And before anyone gives me the runaround, I should mention that I quit my job this morning, I haven't slept in 3 days, and I have absolutely no patience for games. Harry stepped forward. I'm in charge. The woman turned, and her eyes widened. You're a child. I'm aware. A literal child. She rubbed her face with both hands. Of course. Of course this is what I find. The mysterious power broker reshaping Knockturn Alley is an actual kid. And you are. Tonks. Just Tonks. She straightened, some of her exhaustion falling away. I was an Auror trainee until about 4 hours ago. Third in my class, top marks in stealth and tracking, full metamorphomagus with combat training. She paused. I'm looking for work. Harry studied her. Pink hair, she'd changed that deliberately, a statement of defiance. Auror robes, but rumpled, worn, clearly not treated with the respect most Aurors gave their uniforms. And her eyes had the same look he saw in the mirror sometimes. The look of someone who'd been told they didn't belong and was tired of believing it. Why did you quit? He asked. Because I spent 3 years watching good people get passed over for promotions because their blood wasn't pure enough. Because I watched my colleagues harass werewolves and vampires and anyone else the ministry decided wasn't human enough to matter. Because yesterday, my supervisor told me I'd never make full Auror because my mother married a Muggleborn and my abilities were. She made air quotes, unsuitable for serious law enforcement work. Her hair flickered, shifting from pink to red to something approaching purple. I tried to work within the system, she continued. I really did. But the system doesn't want to change. It wants to stay exactly what it is, a club for purebloods to congratulate themselves on being better than everyone else. She met Harry's eyes squarely. I heard there's someone building something different down here. Someone who doesn't care about blood or species or any of the other rubbish the ministry obsesses about. Is that true? Harry glanced at Lupin, who was staring at Tonks with an expression that combined recognition and something else Harry couldn't quite name. It's true, Harry said. What skills do you have besides combat and tracking? Infiltration. Disguise, obviously. She gestured at her face. Intelligence analysis. I can blend into any environment, become anyone, go anywhere without being noticed. You want to be a spy. I want to be useful. I want to matter. Tonks's voice cracked slightly. I spent my whole life being told I was wrong blood, wrong abilities, wrong everything. I want to be somewhere that cares about what I can do, not what I was born as. Harry made a decision. You're hired, he said. Probationary period, 1 month. You'll report to Mira for assignment. Accommodation can be arranged in the boarding house if you need it. Tonks blinked. Just like that. No interviews, no references, no background check. I've known about you since you started watching the alley 3 weeks ago, Harry said calmly. I had your background checked before you walked through the door. I know your history, your training scores, your family situation. You're exactly what you appear to be, talented, undervalued, and looking for a place to belong. Tonks stared at him. You're kind of terrifying, you know that. I've been told. Harry turned to leave. Mira will get you settled. Welcome to the refuge, Tonks. Behind him, he heard Lupin approach the new arrival. Your mother is Andromeda Black. Lupin's voice was carefully neutral. Yes. Do you know her? I knew her family. A long time ago. A pause. You look like your cousin. Around the eyes. Harry didn't stay to hear Tonks's response. He had too much to do, too many plans to set in motion. But something warm settled in his chest as he walked away. We're growing, he thought. We're becoming something real. That night, Harry sat on the refuge's roof and watched the stars. The cloak was wrapped around him, more for comfort than concealment. Below, the alley had gone quiet, even Knockturn Alley slept eventually. 6 months. In 6 months, he'd gone from a starving child in a cupboard to this. Owner of buildings. Employer of werewolves and metamorph magi and squibs and vampires. Broker of alliances. Player of games that powerful wizards had been playing for centuries. It should have felt impossible. It should have felt like a dream. Instead, it just felt like the beginning. Harry pulled out the letter he'd received weeks ago, the one from a friend that he still hadn't answered. He'd been waiting, gathering information, trying to identify the sender before responding. He still didn't know for certain. But he had his suspicions. Time to find out, he thought. He wrote a response on parchment of his own, simple, direct, giving nothing away while inviting further contact. Then he called Dobby. The house elf appeared instantly, popping into existence beside him. Master Harry is calling. I need you to deliver this letter. Harry held out the folded parchment. Don't let anyone see you. Don't let anyone know who sent it. Dobby understands. The elf took the letter with trembling fingers. Where is Dobby delivering? Harry told him. Dobby's eyes went very wide. That is a dangerous place, Master Harry. Yes. It is. Harry met the elf's eyes steadily. Can you do it? Dobby squared his tiny shoulders. Dobby is serving the great Harry Potter. Dobby is being brave. He vanished with a pop. Harry turned back to the stars. Somewhere out there, forces were gathering. Dumbledore was still searching for him. The Ministry was watching. And whoever had sent that first letter, whether ally or enemy, was waiting for a response. The game was getting larger. The stakes were getting higher. Good, Harry thought. I was getting bored. Below him, the refuge stood solid and strong, filled with people who'd found a home. His people. His family. Whatever came next, he'd face it. Not alone, never alone again, but with the army of the unwanted he was building one soul at a time. The boy who lived was becoming something else. Something the wizarding world had never seen before. And they had no idea what was coming. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Wolf and the Snake. 3 months had sharpened Harry Potter into something dangerous. He moved through Knockturn Alley like a shadow given purpose, the invisibility cloak rendering him unseen while his mind catalogued every detail, the new vendor on the corner selling charmed trinkets, likely a fence for stolen goods, the subtle tension between the vampire delegation and the werewolf pack that had moved into the eastern quarter, the Ministry informant pretending to browse Borgin's wares, the third this week. They were getting desperate. 8 years old now. The birthday had passed without fanfare. Harry didn't see the point of celebrating survival, and his people had learned not to push. The refuge had grown beyond his original vision. 3 buildings had become 7, purchased through shell companies and ancient Potter contracts that predated Ministry oversight. The boarding house was perpetually full. The shops on the ground floor turned legitimate profit while serving as fronts for information gathering. And beneath it all, invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look, a network of loyalty and obligation spread across magical Britain like a spider's web. Harry had learned that power came in many forms. Gold was the crudest, useful but limited. Information was better. But the truest power, the kind that couldn't be bought or stolen, came from being needed. He made himself indispensable. When a werewolf family faced eviction, Harry found them housing. When a squib merchant was being extorted, Harry made the extortionists disappear. When a half-giant was denied work everywhere else, Harry gave him a job guarding the refuge's entrance. Word spread. People talked. And slowly, inevitably, those who had nowhere else to turn began finding their way to Knockturn Alley. To Harry. The morning began with routine, review reports, meet with Mira about operational concerns, spend 2 hours with Lupin studying magical theory. Harry still didn't have a wand, the Ministry tracked wand purchases, and he wasn't ready to announce himself that publicly, but Lupin had taught him to feel his magic, to understand its currents and eddies without needing a focus. "You have remarkable control for someone your age," Lupin said during their session, watching Harry levitate a quill through pure will. "Most wizards can't manage wandless magic until their 20s, if ever. I had to learn control early." Harry let the quill drift back to the desk. "Accidental magic at the Dursleys meant punishment. I taught myself to suppress it, contain it. This is just the opposite." Lupin's face did something complicated. He'd heard stories about the Dursleys over the past months, fragments, pieces, never the full picture, and each one seemed to wound him in a way Harry didn't entirely understand. "James could do something similar," Lupin said quietly. "Small magics without a wand. He said it was a Potter trait." "Tell me about him." Something new. This had become their ritual. Each lesson ended with a story about Harry's parents, not the sanitized legends of the boy who lived's heroic family, but real memories. James's arrogance and how Lily had punctured it. Lily's temper and how James had learned to weather it. The way they'd looked at each other when they thought no one was watching. "He proposed to your mother 17 times before she said yes," Lupin said, a ghost of a smile crossing his worn features. "The first 16 were pranks, elaborate, ridiculous, involving everything from enchanted fireworks to a trained hippogriff. The 17th time, he just asked. No tricks, no jokes. Just James, being honest for once in his life." "What did she say?" "She said, about bloody time, Potter. Then she hexed him for making her cry." Lupin's smile faded. "They were married 3 months later. And then." He didn't finish. He never finished that story. A knock interrupted them. Tonks, her hair electric blue today, her expression urgent. "Harry. We have a situation." The situation was a young woman huddled in the refuge's common room, surrounded by concerned residents and radiating fear like heat from a furnace. She was perhaps 20, with sharp features and dark eyes that darted constantly, never settling on anything for more than a moment. Her robes were expensive but torn, and she clutched a small bag to her chest like it contained everything that mattered in the world. "She came in through the emergency entrance," Tonks explained quietly as they observed from the doorway. "Said she needed sanctuary. Won't give her name, won't explain why she's running." Harry studied the woman. Her posture said pure blood, generations of breeding showing in the angle of her spine, the set of her shoulders. But her fear was genuine, the kind that came from real danger rather than mere inconvenience. "Has she been searched?" "Magically, yes. She's carrying 3 portkeys, a blood-sealed lockbox, and enough gold to buy a small house." Tonks's voice was neutral, professional. She'd grown into her role over the past months, her natural talents finally finding proper use. "No weapons. No tracking charms that I could detect." "Tracking charms you could detect." "I'm good, Harry. I'm not perfect. If someone really wanted to follow her here, they might have." Harry considered options. Clear the common room. Move her somewhere secure. "I'll speak with her alone." Tonks raised an eyebrow. "Alone? She could be a plant." "She's not." "How can you be sure?" Harry didn't answer. He wasn't sure, not completely. But something about the woman's fear felt authentic in a way that was hard to fake. And if she was a plant, speaking with her alone would reveal that quickly enough. 20 minutes later, the woman sat across from Harry in a small interview room, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. "You're the one they call the Lord of Shadows," she said. Her voice was steadier than Harry had expected. "I thought you'd be older." "Everyone does. You have sanctuary here for now, but I need to know who's chasing you and why." The woman's hands tightened on the cup. "If I tell you, you'll have to decide whether to hand me over." "I don't hand people over. Not to anyone. But I can't protect you if I don't understand the threat." Silence stretched between them. Harry waited, patient. He'd learned that silence often accomplished what questions couldn't. "My name is Narcissa Black," the woman finally said. "Narcissa Malfoy, now. I'm running from my husband." Harry kept his expression neutral despite the jolt that ran through him. Malfoy. Of course. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. "Lucius Malfoy," he said. "Your husband is the man who's been trying to undermine my operations for 6 months." "Yes." Narcissa's chin lifted slightly. "And I'm the woman who's been feeding you information about his plans." Harry went very still. The anonymous tips that had helped him anticipate Malfoy's moves. The warnings about ministry inspections. The detailed intelligence about Death Eater remnant movements. He'd assumed they came from someone in Malfoy's organization, a disgruntled employee, a rival faction. Not Malfoy's wife. "Why?" "Because my husband is a monster." Narcissa's voice was flat, emotionless, but something burned behind her eyes. "Because he hurts people for pleasure and calls it politics. Because he's raising my son to be exactly like him." She swallowed. "And because I made a mistake when I was 17, and I've been paying for it ever since." "Your son?" "Draco. He's 8 years old. The same age as you, I believe." Narcissa's composure cracked slightly. "Lucius has plans for him. Training. Conditioning. He wants to turn Draco into a weapon, a proper heir to the Malfoy legacy." Harry thought about what he knew of the Malfoy legacy. Dark artifacts. Blood supremacy. Torture of those deemed lesser. Where is Draco now? At the manor. With his father. Narcissa's voice broke. "I couldn't take him. Lucius has wards, guards, Draco wouldn't have come willingly. He doesn't understand yet what his father is." "But you came anyway." "I came because if I stayed, I would become something I couldn't live with. And because—" She hesitated. "Because I hoped you might help me get him back." Harry leaned back in his chair, processing. This was a test, he could feel it. Not from Narcissa necessarily, but from the universe. The wife of his enemy, offering alliance and information, asking for help rescuing a child from an abusive household. He knew how that story felt from the inside. "What do you have to offer?" he asked. "Besides information. I have contacts within Pureblood Society. I have knowledge of Lucius's operations, not everything, but enough to hurt him. I have." She hesitated, then reached into her bag and withdrew the blood-sealed lockbox. "I have this." She pressed her thumb to the lock. It clicked open, revealing a small leather journal bound in what looked like snakeskin. Lucius's private records. Names, dates, transactions. Every bribe he's paid, every official he's corrupted, every crime he's committed since the end of the war. Narcissa's smile was thin and sharp. "He thought I didn't know where he kept it. He was wrong." Harry stared at the journal. This was significant. If the contents were genuine, it represented leverage beyond anything he currently possessed. "You're asking me to go against Lucius Malfoy," he said slowly. "A man with connections throughout the ministry, wealth to rival my own, and a history of making problems disappear." "Yes. And in exchange, you want me to somehow extract your son from one of the most heavily warded estates in magical Britain?" "Yes." Harry was quiet for a long moment. "You understand that even if I agree to help, it might not work. Malfoy Manor is a fortress. Lucius will be expecting some kind of retaliation after you fled." "I understand." Narcissa's eyes met his. "But you're the only one who might try. Everyone else in the wizarding world is either afraid of Lucius, beholden to him, or doesn't care about a child trapped in a bad situation. And you think I care? I think you built a home for people no one else wanted." Narcissa's voice softened. I think you understand what it's like to be trapped somewhere terrible with no one coming to save you. Harry felt the truth of that land somewhere in his chest. I'll consider it, he said finally. For now, you have sanctuary. Tonks will arrange a secure room. We'll talk more once I've verified your information. Thank you. Narcissa stood, her composure reassembling itself like armor. I know this is a risk for you. I know Lucius is dangerous. But I also know that my son is running out of time. She left. Harry sat alone in the interview room, staring at the journal she'd left on the table. His enemy's wife. His enemy's secrets. His enemy's son. The game was getting complicated. Lupin found him on the roof that evening, invisible beneath the cloak, watching the sunset paint the alley in shades of gold and shadow. Tonks told me about our visitor. Lupin settled onto the roof beside him, seemingly unconcerned about sitting next to someone he couldn't see. Narcissa Black. I knew her, briefly. Before the war. Harry let the cloak slip, becoming visible. What was she like? Cold. Proud. Utterly devoted to her family, the Black family, I mean, not whatever she might have built with Malfoy. Lupin's expression was distant. She wasn't cruel like Bellatrix. But she wasn't kind either. She was careful. Always calculating the angles. You think she's playing me? I think she's playing someone. The question is whether her goals align with yours well enough that it doesn't matter. Lupin turned to look at him. Are you actually considering helping her? I'm considering what helping her might cost and what it might gain. Harry pulled his knees to his chest, suddenly feeling every one of his 8 years. Her son is trapped with an abusive father. I know what that's like. Harry, I'm not being sentimental. I know the risks. Harry's voice hardened. But I also know that Draco Malfoy is going to grow up to be someone. Right now, Lucius is making sure that someone is another Death Eater in waiting. Another monster in training. You can't save everyone. No. But I can save some people. Harry met Lupin's eyes. Isn't that what you're always telling me? That power means nothing if you don't use it to help those who can't help themselves. Lupin's face did something complicated. I say a lot of things. I'm not sure I'm the best source of wisdom on how to live. You survived. You kept going when everything was taken from you. That's more than most people manage. Harry reached out and touched Lupin's arm, a rare gesture, physical contact still feeling strange after years of it being only violent. I'm going to help her. Or at least, I'm going to try. I need you to tell me if I'm making a mistake. Lupin was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he covered Harry's hand with his own. It's probably a mistake, he said quietly. Lucius Malfoy is dangerous, vindictive, and patient. He won't forgive this. I know. Going after his son will make this personal. Right now, you're an annoyance. After this, you'll be an enemy. I know. You're going to do it anyway. Yes. Lupin sighed, but there was something almost like pride in his eyes. Then we'd better start planning. Malfoy Manor won't breach itself. The planning took 2 weeks. Harry assembled his inner circle. Lupin, Tonks, Mira, Ironheart, Griphook had finally, grudgingly, accepted the name Harry had given him, and Dobby. They met in a secure room beneath the refuge, wards layered so thickly that even house elf magic couldn't penetrate uninvited. Malfoy Manor is one of the most heavily warded estates in Britain, Ironheart said, unrolling a map that showed the property's layout in meticulous detail. Goblin-forged protections, pure-blood family magic, and ministry-approved security measures. Standard assault is impossible. Nothing is impossible, Harry said. Only expensive. Very expensive, in this case. The wards would take a team of cursebreakers 3 months to dismantle. We don't have 3 months, and you don't want to attract that kind of attention. Tonks leaned forward, studying the map. What about non-standard assault? I can become anyone, go anywhere. If I could get inside the wards include identity verification, Narcissa said. She'd been invited to this meeting over Ironheart's objections, her information too valuable to exclude. They recognize magical signatures. A metamorphmagus can change her appearance, but not her magical core. What about the boy? Mira asked. Could he be convinced to leave on his own? Narcissa shook her head. Draco doesn't understand the danger he's in. He loves his father, or thinks he does. He wouldn't leave voluntarily, and trying to explain would only alert Lucius. Harry studied the map, his mind working through possibilities. Every approach seemed blocked, the wards too strong, the security too tight, the risks too high. But there was always a way. There had to be. Dobby, he said slowly. House elf magic operates differently than wizard magic, correct? The little elf perked up. Yes, Master Harry. House elves is being bound to families, to places. Our magic is being tied to bonds, not wands. Could a house elf bypass the Malfoy wards? Dobby's ears drooped. Only Malfoy elves can be entering Malfoy Manor uninvited, Master Harry. Other elves cannot. But Malfoy elves could. Yes, but Malfoy elves is being bound. They cannot betray their masters. Harry's eyes met Narcissa's. You were a Malfoy. The elves served you too. Until I left. Lucius would have transferred their bindings the moment he realized I was gone. All of them. Narcissa hesitated. I don't know. Possibly not. Some of the older elves had served my family before I married. Their bindings were complicated. Dobby was vibrating with barely contained energy. Dobby is knowing a Malfoy elf. Dobby was being friends with Kipsy before Dobby was freed. Kipsy was being bound to Miss Narcissa first, before she was being transferred to Master Lucius. Harry leaned forward. Could you contact Kipsy? Find out if her binding to Narcissa still exists. Dobby can be trying, Master Harry. The little elf's expression turned fierce. Dobby is wanting to help. The small Malfoy is not being treated well. Dobby heard things, when Dobby was serving there. Bad things. The room went quiet. Harry saw Narcissa's hands clench, saw the guilt flash across her face before she suppressed it. Do it, Harry said. Carefully. If Kipsy's binding to Narcissa is still active, we have our way in. 2 days later, Dobby returned with news. Kipsy's binding is still existing, the elf reported, bouncing on his toes with excitement. Master Lucius was not knowing Miss Narcissa had a personal elf before marriage. Kipsy was hiding, serving in secret, never being noticed by the bad master. Can Kipsy bring Draco out? Kipsy is being willing to try, Master Harry. But she is being afraid. If Master Lucius catches her. Harry understood what Dobby wasn't saying. The punishments pureblood families inflicted on disobedient elves were legendary in their cruelty. We won't let that happen. When Kipsy brings Draco out, we'll bring her too. Freedom for service. Dobby's eyes filled with tears. Master Harry is being the greatest wizard. Dobby is always knowing this. Harry resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Dobby's hero worship had only intensified since his rescue, attempts to moderate it had proven futile. When can she do it? Master Lucius is leaving Manor tomorrow night. Death Eater meeting, very secret. Kipsy says only young Master will be home with guards. Tomorrow. Fast, maybe too fast, but waiting gave Malfoy more time to discover their plan. We move tomorrow, Harry decided. Tonks, I need you and 3 of your best positioned near the manor's boundaries. If anything goes wrong, your extraction. And if we can't extract? Then you disappear. I won't lose people to a failed operation. Tonks nodded, her hair shifting to a determined red. Understood. Lupin, you're with me. We'll coordinate from a safe house Myra's arranging. Dobby, you're our link to Kipsy. The moment she has Draco, you bring them both to us. Yes, Master Harry. Narcissa. Harry turned to face her. Your son might not come willingly. He might fight, scream, try to escape. I need you to be ready to explain quickly why he should trust you over his father. Narcissa's face was pale but resolved. I'll be ready. Then we're set. Harry looked around the room at his people, his strange, misfit family of werewolves and spies and freed elves. Tomorrow night, we extract Draco Malfoy. Any questions? No one spoke. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. The safe house was a converted warehouse in Muggle London, close enough to Wiltshire for quick response, far enough from Knockturn Alley that a failure wouldn't lead back to the refuge. Harry sat by a window, watching rain streak down the glass, while Lupin paced behind him and Narcissa sat frozen in a chair by the fireplace. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. It's time, Harry said as his pocket watch showed 9 o'clock. Dobby. The elf appeared instantly. Master Harry. Tell Kipsy to proceed. Dobby vanished. Minutes stretched like hours. Harry tracked them by heartbeats, by breaths, by the soft sounds of rain against the window. Lupin stopped pacing. Something feels wrong. Everything feels wrong. We're kidnapping a child from one of the most powerful families in Britain. Harry didn't turn from the window. Wrong is expected. This is different. I can smell. Lupin went rigid. Someone's coming. Harry was on his feet instantly. Wand, he'd finally obtained one 3 weeks ago, through channels that didn't involve the ministry, sliding into his hand. How many? Multiple. Moving fast. They're not trying to hide. Narcissa rose, her own wand drawn. Lucius. He must have known. He must have. The door exploded inward. 3 wizards came through the smoke and debris, wands blazing. Harry threw up a shield that barely caught the first curse, felt it shatter against his magic like ice on stone. Lupin moved faster than human, wolf speed carrying him into the lead attacker before the man could adjust his aim. Get Narcissa out. Harry shouted, already moving. His wand carved patterns in the air, not complex spells. He hadn't learned enough for complexity yet, but raw power, force, the kind of magic that came from desperation and determination. An attacker went down, stunned by something Harry threw almost by instinct. Another curse scorched past his ear, close enough to smell burning hair. He ducked, rolled, came up with his wand pointed at center mass. Stupefy. The red light caught the second attacker in the chest. He crumpled. The third had engaged Lupin, and the battle there was vicious, werewolf strength against trained combat magic, neither giving quarter. Harry circled, looking for an opening, and found it when the attacker overextended on a cutting curse. His stunner hit the man's exposed back. 3 attackers down. More coming, Lupin gasped. Blood ran from a gash on his face, but his eyes were steady. I can hear them. 6, maybe 7. Too many. They needed to move. Narcissa, where's the emergency port key? Already triggered. It's not working. Her voice was sharp with fear. They've blocked port key travel. We're trapped. Harry's mind raced through options. The warehouse had multiple exits, but if they were surrounded, windows. The building was 3 stories up. Flue. No fireplace. Apparition. None of them could apparate, and even if they could, the anti-port key ward would likely block that too. Which left one option. Dobby. The elf appeared, eyes wide with fear. Master Harry. Dobby was coming to warn, the bad wizards, they were waiting. Kipsy is being captured, the small master is, we're leaving. Now. All of us. Harry grabbed Narcissa's arm with one hand, Lupin's with the other. Dobby, can you take us all? Dobby is not knowing if, try. Now. Dobby grabbed Harry's leg with both hands. Harry felt the elf's magic wrap around them, straining against the wards that blocked normal transportation. The door at the far end of the warehouse burst open. More wizards poured through. Dobby. The elf screamed, a sound of pure effort, and the world twisted inside out. They landed hard on the roof of the refuge, all of them tumbling in a heap of limbs and robes. Harry's ears were ringing, his vision swimming, but he forced himself upright. Lupin was already standing, scanning for threats. Narcissa was pulling herself up, her face paper white. And Dobby. Dobby was lying still, his small body crumpled on the stone. No. Harry dropped to his knees beside the elf. No, no, no. Dobby. The elf's eyes fluttered open, barely. Dobby, did it. Brought Master Harry, safe. You're hurt. We need a healer, Dobby is just, tired. A weak smile crossed the elf's face. The wards were very strong. Dobby had to push, very hard. Don't talk. Save your strength. Dobby is wanting to say. The elf's hand found Harry's, grip weak but determined. Dobby is being happy. Master Harry gave Dobby purpose. Gave Dobby, family. You're not dying. I'm not letting you die. Not dying. Dobby's eyes closed. Just, resting. Dobby will be better, soon. The elf's breathing steadied into something that might have been sleep or might have been unconsciousness. Harry stayed frozen, his hand wrapped around Dobby's, until Mira appeared on the roof with a medical kit and a team of assistants. I'll take care of him, she said softly. Go. Figure out what happened. I'll keep him alive. Harry stood. His body felt distant, mechanical, a machine responding to commands his mind was too numb to fully issue. Lupin was watching him with worried eyes. Harry, someone betrayed us. Harry's voice was flat. They knew we were coming. They had wards specifically designed to trap us. It could have been, it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. Harry turned to face Narcissa. Who else knew the plan? No one. I swear, I didn't, then Lucius has sources we haven't identified. People inside my organization. People close enough to know operational details. The realization settled over him like cold water. A spy. Inside the refuge. Inside his family. I need to find them, Harry said quietly. And when I do. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The next 72 hours were brutal. Harry interrogated everyone who'd known about the operation, not with violence, but with the cold precision of someone cataloging evidence. He cross-referenced alibis, checked communication records, had Tonks sweep for any sign of external contact that could have carried information out. Nothing. Whoever the spy was, they were good. Dobby recovered slowly, his magical reserves depleted almost to nothing by the impossible apparition through anti-transportation wards. The healer said he'd live, but it would be weeks before he could use magic again. Kipsy was dead. Lucius had made sure of it, a message, clear and brutal, this is what happens to those who betray me. And Draco Malfoy was still trapped in the manor, now under even heavier guard. Harry stood in his office, staring at the wall, trying to think past the exhaustion and the rage. You need to sleep, Tonks said from the doorway. She'd been hovering for hours, worried in a way she didn't quite know how to express. I need to find the spy. You need to be functional. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. She stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. Harry. Look at me. He turned. Tonks's hair was its natural brown, a sign she was too tired or too stressed to maintain her usual colors. This wasn't your fault. I made the plan. I gave the orders. You tried to save a child from an abusive home. That's not something to apologize for. Tonks crossed to him, and before Harry could react, she pulled him into a hug. You're allowed to fail sometimes. You're allowed to not have all the answers. Harry stood rigid in her arms for a moment. Physical affection was still strange to him, still felt like a test he might fail. But something in Tonks's warmth broke through his walls, and he found himself leaning into the embrace. Draco's still there, he mumbled against her shoulder. Kipsy died for nothing. Kipsy died trying to help someone. That's not nothing. Tonks held him tighter. And Draco isn't lost yet. We'll find another way. How? Lucius will be on guard now. We'll figure it out. That's what we do. Tonks pulled back, holding him at arm's length. But first, you sleep. Real sleep, not that half-conscious planning thing you do. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. I'm a metamorphmagus. I can become a doctor. A hint of color crept back into her hair, a defiant streak of pink. Don't make me carry you to bed. Despite everything, Harry felt his lips twitch. You wouldn't. Try me. He didn't try her. Instead, he let her lead him to his quarters, let her make sure he actually lay down, let himself sink into a sleep that was dark and dreamless and desperately needed. Tomorrow, he'd find the spy. Tomorrow, he'd figure out how to save Draco Malfoy. But tonight, he'd let himself be 8 years old, and scared, and cared for by someone who wouldn't let him fall. The spy revealed themselves 3 days later. Harry had set a trap, false information planted through different channels, each version slightly different. Whichever version reached Lucius would identify the leak. The information that leaked was the version Harry had shared with Marcus Flint. Flint. The Slytherin Quidditch captain Harry had recruited 8 months ago after saving his family from debt collectors. A pureblood who'd seemed grateful, loyal, eager to prove himself. A pureblood who'd been feeding information to Lucius Malfoy the entire time. Harry found him in one of the refuge's training rooms, practicing dueling forms with mechanical precision. He didn't announce himself, just stepped through the door and let it close behind him with a soft click. Flint spun, wand raised. When he saw who it was, something complicated crossed his face. Potter. I didn't expect, no. You didn't. Harry's voice was flat. Sit down, Marcus. I don't know what you think sit. Down. Something in Harry's tone made Flint obey. He sank onto a bench, his wand lowering, and Harry saw the exact moment he realized the game was over. How long have you known? Flint asked. 3 days. I set traps after the warehouse. You tripped every single one. Flint laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Of course you did. The child genius. The Lord of Shadows. He shook his head. I told Lucius you were too clever. He didn't listen. Why? Why did I betray you? Flint's eyes were hard. Because Lucius Malfoy holds my family's debts. You saved us from the collectors, yes, but Malfoy owns the debts themselves. He can call them in any time he wants. And you didn't think to tell me that? And admit that everything I am is owned by a Death Eater? That my family's honor is a lie built on borrowed gold? Flint's voice cracked. I thought I could play both sides. Feed Malfoy enough to keep him satisfied while serving you. But he kept wanting more. And then the operation against his son. You told him we were coming. I told him someone was trying to extract the boy. I didn't know the details, not all of them. Flint's face twisted. Kipsy's death wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't know you didn't know. Or you didn't want to know. Silence. Harry studied the man in front of him, this boy, really, barely more than a teenager, trapped between two masters and breaking under the pressure. A year ago, Harry might have felt sympathy. Now, all he felt was cold. Kipsy was a good elf. She died because you were afraid of what you might lose. I'm not proud of it. Flint's voice was barely a whisper. I couldn't see another way. There's always another way. Harry moved closer, stopping just out of arm's reach. You could have come to me. Told me about the debts. We could have found a solution together. You think I didn't consider that? But Malfoy's been playing this game for decades. You're 8 years old. I couldn't risk my family on a child. Harry's voice was soft, dangerous. You couldn't risk your family on a child who'd already beaten the Mulcibers, built an empire in Knockturn Alley, and offered you salvation when everyone else had given up on you. Flint flinched. I made a mistake. Yes. You did. Harry let the silence stretch. The question is what happens now. You'll kill me. It wasn't a question. Or have someone else do it. Make an example. That's what Malfoy would do. Is that what you expect from me? Flint looked up, confusion breaking through his resignation. I betrayed you. I got someone killed. What else would you? I'd use you. Harry's eyes were cold, calculating. Malfoy thinks you're his asset. That's valuable. Instead of killing you, I turn you. Feed Malfoy the information I want him to have. Use his own spy network against him. He'd kill me if he found out. Probably. But that was always going to be true, wasn't it? Malfoy doesn't value loyalty, he values utility. The moment you stopped being useful, you were dead anyway. Flint's face went gray as he processed this. Harry watched him think it through, the trap he'd built for himself, the walls closing in from every direction. I'm offering you a choice, Harry said quietly. Work for me, really work for me, no more double games, and I'll protect your family. The debts will be bought out within 6 months. Malfoy will never be able to threaten you again. And if I refuse? Then you're out. No execution, no revenge, just exile. You leave the refuge, leave Knockturn Alley, and never come back. What happens between you and Malfoy after that is your problem. Flint stared at him. You're serious. After everything I did, you're not going to. I'm not Malfoy. I'm not Dumbledore. I don't throw people away just because they've made mistakes. Harry's voice hardened. But I don't forget either. If you betray me again, there won't be a third conversation. Understand? Slowly, Flint nodded. Then prove yourself. Starting now, you're my eyes inside Malfoy's network. Everything he tells you, everything he asks for, comes directly to me. And Draco? The boy? Harry's expression didn't change. The boy is still the priority. When the opportunity comes, and it will come, we'll try again. And this time, we'll have someone on the inside who knows how Malfoy thinks. Flint looked at the floor for a long moment. When he looked up again, something had shifted in his eyes, resignation, maybe, or the beginning of something that might someday become genuine loyalty. I'm in, he said. Whatever you need. Harry nodded once and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Marcus. One more thing. Yes. Kipsy trusted us. She died because of that trust. Harry's voice was quiet, but it carried clearly in the silent room. Don't make me regret not killing you. He left without waiting for a response. 2 weeks later, Tonks burst into Harry's office with news that changed everything. Dumbledore's made a move, she said, slightly out of breath. He's coming here. Tonight. Harry set down the report he'd been reading. Here. To the refuge? To Knockturn Alley. Word is he's looking for someone who's been disrupting the natural order of the magical world. Tonks's expression was grim. 3 guesses who that might be. Harry had known this confrontation was coming. Dumbledore had been searching for him since the day he disappeared from Privet Drive, the tracking charms, the failed ministry inquiries, the pointed questions asked at goblin establishments. But the old wizard had been patient. Careful. Content to watch and wait while Harry built his empire. Until now. How many people is he bringing? None that we can detect. Just him. That's either very confident or very foolish. He's Albus Dumbledore. He's probably both. Tonks hesitated. Harry, are you sure you want to do this? We could hide you, move you somewhere, no more hiding. Harry stood, straightening his robes with deliberate precision. If Dumbledore wants to talk, we'll talk. On my terms. He's the most powerful wizard in the world. Power isn't everything. Harry's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. I learned that in a cupboard under the stairs. They met in the square between Harry's 3 buildings, neutral ground, open air, dozens of witnesses watching from windows and doorways. Harry had chosen the location deliberately. A private meeting gave Dumbledore too much control. A public one reminded everyone watching that the Lord of Shadows had nothing to hide. Dumbledore arrived exactly at sunset. He looked precisely as the books described, tall, thin, white-bearded, dressed in robes of deep purple decorated with silver stars. His eyes twinkled behind half-moon spectacles, projecting grandfatherly warmth that didn't quite reach his eyes. Harry stood in the center of the square, Lupin on his left, Tonks on his right. He'd debated bringing more guards but decided against it. This wasn't a battle, not yet. This was a negotiation. Harry, my boy. Dumbledore's voice was gentle, sorrowful. I've been looking for you for a very long time. I know. Your tracking charms were quite persistent. Something flickered behind the twinkle. I was concerned for your safety. A child your age, alone in such a dangerous place, I wasn't alone. And I wasn't in danger. Harry kept his voice level. The only danger I ever faced was at the home you placed me in. The square went quiet. Every eye was fixed on the confrontation, every ear straining to hear. The Dursleys were meant to protect you, Dumbledore said carefully. The Blood Wards, the Dursleys starved me. Locked me in a cupboard. Beat me when I did magic accidentally. Harry's voice didn't waver. If that's protection, I'll take my chances with the monsters. Dumbledore's face did something complicated. For a moment, he looked genuinely pained, but only for a moment. I regret that your placement was not what I intended. If I had known, you knew. Harry cut him off. Arabella Figg lived 2 streets away. She reported to you regularly. You knew exactly what was happening in that house. Mrs. Figg reported that you were safe. Unhappy, perhaps, but unhappy. Harry laughed, a cold, sharp sound. I weighed 40 pounds when I left, Professor. 40 pounds. I could count my ribs in the mirror. Is that your definition of unhappy? The watching crowd murmured. This wasn't how people spoke to Albus Dumbledore. This wasn't how anyone spoke to Albus Dumbledore. But Harry wasn't anyone. Why are you here? He asked, not giving Dumbledore time to recover. After all this time, all these months of watching and waiting, why now? Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. When he spoke, the grandfatherly facade had cracked slightly, revealing something harder underneath. Because you're building something dangerous, Harry. A power base in the shadows, allegiances with creatures and criminals, influence that extends far beyond what any child should possess. His voice sharpened. Because Voldemort will return someday, and when he does, you need to be ready. And this, he gestured at the square, at the refuge, at everything Harry had built, is not preparation. It's distraction. Distraction from what? From being your weapon. Dumbledore flinched. I never meant, didn't you? Harry stepped forward, closing the distance between them. I've read the prophecy, Professor. I know what you think I am, what you think I have to become. The chosen one. The only one who can defeat Voldemort. His voice hardened. You've been grooming me since the day I was born. The placement with the Dursleys, the isolation, the suffering, it was all designed to make me desperate. Grateful. Easy to manipulate when you finally swooped in to rescue me. That's not, but I rescued myself. Harry's eyes met Dumbledore's, and for a moment, the crowd could have sworn they saw something dangerous looking out from behind them. I built something you didn't expect, became someone you couldn't control. And now you're scared. I am not, you're scared because I'm not the broken, grateful orphan you planned for. You're scared because I have resources, allies, power of my own. You're scared because when Voldemort comes back, I might not need you anymore. The silence was absolute. Even the wind seemed to have stopped, holding its breath. Dumbledore's face was unreadable. The twinkle had gone entirely, replaced by something old and cold and calculating. You are a child, he said finally. A remarkable child, I grant you, but still a child. You don't understand the forces at play, the sacrifices that must be made. I understand sacrifice. Harry's voice was quiet now, but it carried across the square like a blade. I understand it better than you ever will. The difference between us is that I don't sacrifice other people to protect my plans. Harry, this conversation is over. Harry turned his back on the most powerful wizard in the world, a calculated insult, a statement of contempt. I'm not your weapon, Professor. I'm not your pawn. You want to work with me, as an equal? I'm open to discussion. But if you try to control me, manipulate me, or use me without my consent. He glanced over his shoulder, and his eyes were very cold. I'll treat you the same way I treat anyone else who threatens my people. He walked away. Dumbledore stood in the square, watching him go, and for the first time in a very long time, Albus Dumbledore didn't know what to do. The aftermath of the confrontation rippled through magical Britain like a stone dropped in still water. The prophet ran stories for a week. Boy Who Lived defies Dumbledore, chosen one chooses shadows, what is Harry Potter hiding? The ministry made noises about investigations, inquiries, regulations. Pure-blood society buzzed with gossip. And in Knockturn Alley, something shifted. People who had been watching from the sidelines finally picked sides. Shop owners who'd been waiting to see which way the wind blew through in their lot with the refuge. Even some of the darker elements, vampires, werewolves, beings who'd been neutral at best, began making overtures. The Lord of Shadows had faced down Albus Dumbledore and walked away unscathed. That meant something. That changed things. Harry barely noticed. He was too busy planning. Flint's intelligence from the Malfoy network had been invaluable. Lucius was rattled by the failed warehouse operation, confused about how Harry had escaped, worried about what Narcissa might have told him. He'd increased security on the manor but pulled resources away from his business operations to do it. That created opportunities. He's moving dark artifacts through a warehouse in Manchester, Flint reported during one of their meetings. The ministry doesn't know about it, the Aurors who were supposed to be watching were paid off months ago. What kind of artifacts? Old stuff. Pre-war. Things that were supposed to have been destroyed but somehow weren't. Flint's voice dropped. There's a diary. Lucius is obsessed with it, says it belonged to someone important, that it has value. Harry filed this away for later investigation. What about Draco? Still in the manor. Lucius has him under constant watch, tutors, guards, house elves. The only time he leaves is for official pureblood functions, and even then he's escorted. The official functions. Which ones? Flint pulled out a parchment. There's a gala next month at the Greengrass estate. All the old families will be there. Draco's expected to attend. Harry studied the information. A public event. Hundreds of guests. Social expectations that even Lucius couldn't ignore. It wasn't much. But it was something. Keep watching, he said. When the opportunity comes, we'll be ready. 3 weeks later, Harry sat in his office with Narcissa, reviewing plans for the 100th time. The Greengrass Gala will be heavily warded, but the wards are designed to prevent uninvited guests, not to trap those already inside, Narcissa explained, pointing to diagrams she'd drawn from memory. Once Draco is at the party, he'll have relative freedom of movement. Relative? Lucius won't let him out of sight completely. But there will be moments, conversations with other children, visits to the refreshment tables, bathroom breaks. Her voice tightened. Moments we can exploit. What about afterward? Even if we get him out of the party, Lucius will come looking. That's why we need to act during the gala itself. While Lucius is surrounded by witnesses, maintaining his social mask. Narcissa's smile was thin and sharp. My husband values his reputation above almost everything else. He won't cause a scene in front of half the Waisengamot. Harry considered this. It was risky, more risky than the warehouse operation had been. But it was also their best chance. What do we tell Draco? Narcissa hesitated. The truth, eventually. That his father is dangerous. That I left to protect him. That there are people who want to help. Will he believe you? I don't know. For a moment, Narcissa's composure cracked, revealing the terrified mother underneath. He's been fed Lucius's lies for years. He might not trust me. He might hate me for leaving. But you're going to try anyway. He's my son. Narcissa's voice was fierce. I'll spend the rest of my life earning his forgiveness if I have to. But I won't leave him in that house. Harry nodded slowly. He understood that kind of determination, the willingness to sacrifice everything for someone you loved. He'd never had anyone feel that way about him. But he'd seen it now, in Narcissa's eyes, in Lupin's quiet devotion, in Tonks's protective hovering. Maybe that was what family really meant. We'll make it work, he said quietly. Whatever it takes. The night before the gala, Harry found Lupin on the roof again. The moon was waning, 3 days past full, the wolf dormant but never quite asleep. Lupin's eyes reflected the starlight as Harry settled beside him. Can't sleep. Never could, before an operation. Lupin's voice was distant. James was the same way. He'd pace for hours, running through scenarios, preparing for everything that could go wrong. And what could go wrong tomorrow? Everything. Nothing. Lupin turned to look at him. You've done well, Harry. Whatever happens, you should know that. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. That's how you know you're doing it right. Lupin's hand found Harry's in the darkness. The moment you think you've done enough is the moment you start failing the people who depend on you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. What do you think they'd say? Harry asked eventually. My parents. If they could see what I've become. Lupin was quiet for a long time. James would be proud, he said finally. Proud and terrified and absolutely furious that you've had to grow up so fast. Lily would. His voice caught. Lily would hold you. 4 hours. Days. However long it took to make up for every moment she missed. Harry felt something tighten in his chest. He'd thought about his parents often over the years, wondered what they'd been like, what they'd wanted for him, whether they'd approve of the choices he'd made. Having someone who actually knew them, who could answer those questions, was a gift he still didn't know how to accept. I wish I'd known them, he said softly. I wish you had too. Lupin squeezed his hand. But you know what they gave you. Their courage, their determination, their absolute refusal to let anyone tell them what they couldn't do. Is that enough? It has to be. Lupin's smile was sad but genuine. It's all any of us have, the pieces of the people who loved us, carried forward into whatever comes next. Harry let that truth settle into his bones. Tomorrow, he'd face Lucius Malfoy's world. Tomorrow, he'd try to save a child who might not want to be saved. But tonight, he sat with the last connection to his parents, and let himself be a boy who was loved. The Greengrass estate blazed with light. Harry observed from a hidden position outside the wards, invisible beneath his cloak, watching the guests arrive in their finery. Pure-blood society at its most ostentatious, silk robes and priceless jewelry and masks of perfect civility hiding gods knew what underneath. Lucius Malfoy arrived precisely at 8, Draco at his side. The boy was dressed in formal robes of Malfoy green and silver, his pale hair slicked back, his expression the careful blankness Harry recognized from his own childhood. The expression of someone who'd learned not to show weakness. Target confirmed, Harry murmured into the communication charm linking him to Tonks and Lupin. Begin positioning. Inside the estate, Narcissa was already working the room. She'd entered separately, the gala was the first time she'd appeared in public since fleeing her husband, and her presence had caused exactly the sensation they'd planned. Attention focused on her meant attention away from everything else. Harry slipped through the wards using a token Narcissa had provided, a piece of the Greengrass family's guest protection magic, modified to accept him. The security was lighter than the manners, designed for privacy rather than imprisonment. Inside, the party was everything he'd expected. Glittering conversation, political maneuvering dressed as small talk, children running underfoot while their parents played at being civilized. He found Draco near the refreshment tables, momentarily alone while Lucius engaged in what looked like an intense conversation with a ministry official. Harry dropped the cloak. Draco's eyes went wide. For a moment, he looked exactly like what he was, a scared 8-year-old confronted by something unexpected. "Don't scream," Harry said quietly. "I'm not here to hurt you. You're Harry Potter." Draco's voice wavered between fear and something else. "The boy who lived. My father says you're dangerous. Your father says a lot of things. Some of them are even true." Harry kept his voice calm, non-threatening. "I'm here because your mother asked me to help." "My mother?" Something complicated crossed Draco's face. "She left. She abandoned us. She left because she was afraid. Not of you, never of you. Of what your father was turning you into." Draco's hands clenched at his sides. "My father loves me. He's teaching me to be strong." "Is that what he calls it? Teaching?" Harry stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I know what it looks like, Draco. I know because I lived it. The isolation. The control. The constant feeling that you're never good enough, that one wrong move will bring punishment. You don't know anything about, I lived in a cupboard for 6 years. I was starved, beaten, told I was worthless every single day." Harry's eyes met Draco's. "I know what it feels like to love someone who hurts you. I know how hard it is to admit that the person who's supposed to protect you is the danger." Draco's composure cracked. For just a moment, Harry saw the terrified child underneath, the one who'd learned to hide behind arrogance because vulnerability meant pain. "My mother sent you. She's here. Tonight. She's been waiting for a chance to talk to you, to explain, Draco." Lucius Malfoy's voice cut across the room like a blade. He was striding toward them, his face a mask of controlled fury, and Harry had only seconds to decide. Run, or stand. He chose to stand. "Mr. Malfoy." Harry's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "What a surprise to see you here." Lucius's eyes swept over him, cataloging, assessing. Whatever he saw made him pause, just for a moment, before his mask of contempt snapped back into place. Harry Potter. The child playing at Lordship in Knockturn Alley. His lip curled. "How did you get in here?" "I was invited." By someone who values truth more than social performance. Harry didn't back away as Lucius approached. We should talk, Mr. Malfoy. About your wife. About your son. About the future. We have nothing to discuss. We have everything to discuss. Harry's voice hardened. Your wife is under my protection. Your secrets are in my possession. And your son. He glanced at Draco, saw the boy watching with wide eyes. Your son deserves to know the truth about his family. You dare, I dare because I have nothing to lose. Harry met Lucius's eyes without flinching. You've built your empire on fear and secrets. I've built mine on loyalty and trust. One of us is going to win this, Mr. Malfoy. And I promise you, it won't be you. The party had gone quiet around them. Every eye was watching, every ear straining to hear. Lucius was trapped. A confrontation here, in public, would destroy the respectable image he'd spent years cultivating. But backing down would be an admission of weakness his enemies would never let him forget. Draco, Lucius said finally, his voice carefully controlled. Come. Draco hesitated. It was only a moment, a heartbeat of uncertainty, but Harry saw it. Saw the question in Draco's eyes, the tiny crack in his father's control. Then the moment passed. Draco moved to his father's side, the obedient son, the perfect heir. But as they walked away, Draco glanced back over his shoulder. And Harry saw something in his eyes that looked almost like hope. Narcissa found him outside the estate, standing in the darkness with the weight of failure pressing down on his shoulders. He didn't come, she said. It wasn't a question. No. But he thought about it. Harry turned to face her. He's not lost yet. The seed is planted. A seed takes time to grow. Then we'll give it time. Harry's voice was tired but determined. Tonight wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Narcissa studied him for a long moment. You truly believe you can save him? I believe everyone deserves a chance. Even Draco Malfoy. Harry started walking toward the apparition point. Especially Draco Malfoy. They vanished into the night, leaving behind a party that would talk about nothing else for months. The night the boy who lived confronted Lucius Malfoy and walked away unscathed. Round 1 was over. The war had just begun. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, the house that Harry built 1 year changes a child into something else entirely. Harry Potter stood at the window of his office, watching dawn break over Knockturn Alley, and barely recognized the boy he'd been 12 months ago. 9 years old now, though the age felt meaningless, a number attached to a body that had outgrown childish things long before its time. The refuge had become a fortress. 7 buildings under his direct control, another dozen operating under his protection. The boarding house had expanded twice, absorbing neighboring properties to accommodate the steady flow of refugees seeking shelter. The legitimate businesses, apothecaries, repair shops, second-hand clothing stores, generated enough profit to fund operations without touching the Potter vaults. And beneath it all, invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look, the network pulsed with information. 60% of Knockturn Alley answered to Harry now. Not through fear, though fear had its uses, but through something more durable. Loyalty earned by fair dealing, by protection actually provided, by the simple revolutionary act of treating the discarded as people worth protecting. The remaining 40% was a patchwork of holdouts, independents, and one significant problem. The Death Eater remnant. They'd been quiet for months after the Malfoy confrontation, licking their wounds and reassessing their assumptions about the child who'd humiliated their patron. But quiet never lasted. Quiet was just the predator circling, looking for weakness. Harry had learned to watch for the moment the circling stopped. A knock at the door. Tonks entered without waiting for permission, she'd long since earned that right. Morning briefing, she said, dropping into the chair across from his desk. Her hair was a professional brown today, her expression carefully neutral in a way that meant bad news. We have a problem. Which kind? The ministry kind. Tonks slid a folder across the desk. Fudge has authorized a formal investigation into irregular business practices in Knockturn Alley. 3 teams of Aurors, full authorization to search and seize. Harry opened the folder, scanning the official documentation. The language was bureaucratic, impersonal, and utterly transparent in its intent. This isn't about business practices. No. It's about you. Tonks leaned forward. Someone's been whispering in Fudge's ear. Telling him that a child crime lord is embarrassing the ministry, making them look weak. The investigation is a pretext to shut you down. Who's whispering? 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. Lucius Malfoy. Of course. The man had been too quiet since the Greengrass Gala, too patient. This was his countermove, using the ministry as a weapon when direct confrontation had failed. Harry closed the folder. When do the raids begin? Tomorrow morning. Dawn strikes on 6 locations, including the refuge. Then we have 12 hours to prepare. Harry's mind was already racing through contingencies. Get Mira. We need to move anything sensitive to the secondary locations. And have Flint reach out to his contacts. I want to know exactly which Aurors are assigned to which targets. Tonks nodded, rising to leave. At the door, she paused. Harry. If this goes badly. It won't. But if it does. We have extraction plans. Safe houses in France, contacts who can, I'm not running. Harry's voice was quiet but absolute. This is my home. These are my people. I didn't build all of this just to abandon it when things get difficult. Tonks studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, a real smile, warm and fierce. James Potter's son, all right. She slipped out the door. I'll have Mira up here in 10 minutes. Harry turned back to the window. The sun had risen fully now, painting the alley in shades of gold and shadow. 12 hours. Not much time. But he'd worked with less. The preparations consumed the day. Harry moved through the refuge like a general marshalling troops, issuing orders that set his entire organization into motion. Sensitive documents went into goblin-secured vaults. Residents with outstanding warrants were relocated to safe houses outside the ministry's jurisdiction. The shops on ground level received coaching on exactly what to say, and more importantly, what not to say, when the Aurors arrived. By midnight, the refuge looked like exactly what it was supposed to be, a charity organization providing housing and employment to disadvantaged members of magical society. Everything else had vanished like morning mist. That's the last of it, Mira reported, finding Harry in the common room where he was reviewing final preparations. The secondary locations are secured. Our people know their stories. We're as ready as we're going to be. What about our more distinctive residents? The vampires have retreated to their own holdings, they're not technically under our protection anyway, so the ministry has no grounds to involve them. The werewolves. Mira hesitated. Some of them wanted to stay. To fight if necessary. No. Harry's voice was firm. The last thing we need is a werewolf attack on Aurors. It would justify everything the ministry claims about us. I told them that. They didn't like it, but they listened. Myra's expression softened slightly. They trust you, Harry. More than they've trusted anyone in a long time. Then I need to be worthy of that trust. Harry stood, stretching muscles cramped from hours of planning. Where's Lupin? On the roof. He wanted to clear his head, he said. Harry nodded and made his way up the stairs. He found Lupin exactly where Mira had said, sitting on the edge of the roof with his legs dangling over the side, watching the stars will overhead. The wolf was closer to the surface than usual. Harry could see it in the yellow gleam of Lupin's eyes, the tension in his shoulders. 2 days to full moon, Harry said, settling beside him. You should be resting. I'll rest when this is over. Lupin's voice was rough. I've been thinking about tomorrow. About what happens if they try to take you. They won't. They might. Lupin turned to face him, and his eyes were very old. You've done something remarkable here, Harry. Built something that matters. But the Ministry doesn't care about remarkable. They care about control. I know. Do you? Lupin's hand found Harry's arm, gripped tight. Because I've seen what happens when the Ministry decides someone is a threat. I've seen friends dragged away in chains, locked in Azkaban without trial, destroyed for the crime of being inconvenient. That won't happen to me. You can't know that. You're powerful, yes, more powerful than any child should be. But the Ministry has resources, authority, the weight of law behind them. Lupin's voice cracked. I can't lose you, Harry. I won't survive losing another person I love. Harry was quiet for a long moment. Then, carefully, he leaned into Lupin's side, a gesture of comfort that still felt foreign but was becoming more natural with practice. You won't lose me, he said softly. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I don't. Harry looked up at the stars. I've prepared for this, Remus. Contingencies within contingencies. Whatever the Ministry throws at us tomorrow, we'll handle it. And if you can't, then I'll adapt. Improvise. Find another way. Harry's voice hardened. I didn't survive the Dursleys by giving up when things got hard. I won't start now. Lupin was silent. Then, slowly, the tension drained from his shoulders. You're too young to be this strong, he said. It's not fair. Nothing's fair. That's why we have to make it fair ourselves. They sat together in the darkness, waiting for dawn and whatever it would bring. The Aurors came at first light. 12 of them, moving in perfect formation through Knockturn Alley's main entrance. Their leader was a stern-faced woman Harry recognized from Tonks's briefings, Senior Auror Robards, a by-the-book enforcer with no love for the Ministry's political games but no willingness to defy direct orders either. Harry met them at the refuge's entrance, flanked by Mira on one side and his solicitor, a sharp-eyed goblin named Silverclaw who specialized in making Ministry functionaries regret their life choices, on the other. Senior Auror, Harry said pleasantly. Welcome to the refuge. I understand you have questions. Robards' eyes narrowed. Whatever she'd expected, a polite 9-year-old wasn't it? Harry Potter. You're under investigation for suspected violations of the Statute of Secrecy, unlicensed business operations, and harboring dangerous creatures. All of which are addressed in this documentation. Silverclaw stepped forward, presenting a thick folder with goblin efficiency. Business licenses, ministry permits, certificates of occupancy for all residents. You'll find everything in order. We'll determine what's in order. Robards accepted the folder but didn't open it. I have authorization to search this premises and detain any individuals found in violation of ministry regulations. Of course. We have nothing to hide. Harry stepped aside, gesturing for the Aurors to enter. I only ask that your people respect my residents' dignity. Many of them have had difficult experiences with authority. Something flickered in Robards' expression, surprise, maybe, or the beginning of reluctant respect. We're not here to harass anyone, she said. Just to verify compliance. Then we shouldn't have any problems. The search took 4 hours. Harry stayed out of the way, letting Silverclaw handle the legal maneuvering while Mira ensured the residents cooperated without volunteering anything extra. The Aurors were thorough, professionally thorough, not vindicatively so, and found exactly what Harry had intended them to find. A well-run charity. Clean records. Residents who told consistent stories about being given second chances. Nothing illegal, nothing dark, nothing that justified the investigation's existence. By mid-morning, Robards was looking increasingly frustrated. This isn't what I was told to expect, she admitted to Harry during a break in the search. The briefing said you were running a criminal operation. That this place was a front for dark activities. I know what the briefing said. I also know who wrote it. Harry's voice was mild. May I speak frankly, Senior Auror? Robards glanced around, then nodded. This investigation isn't about crime. It's about politics. Certain people don't like what I'm building here, a place where werewolves and squibs and other undesirables can live without persecution. They want to shut me down, and they're using your department as a weapon. You're accusing a ministry official of, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm observing a pattern. Harry met her eyes steadily. You seem like an honest officer, Senior Auror. Ask yourself, does anything you've seen today match what you were told to expect? Robards was quiet for a long moment. No, she said finally. It doesn't. Then maybe the question isn't whether I'm breaking laws. Maybe it's who's breaking laws by trying to destroy something legal through false pretenses. Harry walked away before she could respond, leaving her to think. The investigation concluded at noon with no arrests and no seizures. Harry watched the Aurors file out of the refuge, Robards at their head. She paused at the exit, turning back to look at him. This isn't over, she said. There will be more investigations. More pressure. I know. Whoever's behind this, they won't stop just because today was a failure. I know that too. Harry's expression didn't change. But I've been fighting for survival since before I could walk. A few bureaucratic inconveniences won't break me. Robards studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. Good luck, Mr. Potter. Something tells me you're going to need it. She left. Harry stood in the entrance hall, listening to the sounds of his people emerging from their rooms, resuming their lives. The crisis was over, for now. But Robards was right. The pressure would continue. The attacks would escalate. Lucius Malfoy didn't accept defeat gracefully. Harry. Tonks appeared at his elbow, her expression urgent. We have a problem. Another one. The Aurors were a distraction. Her voice was low, tense. While we were dealing with Robards, someone hit our warehouses in Manchester. Harry went cold. The artifact storage. Gone. All of it. Including. Tonks swallowed. Including the Malfoy evidence. Narcissa's journal. The leverage. The proof of Lucius's crimes. The weapon Harry had been holding in reserve for exactly the right moment. Gone. Harry closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the failure settle onto his shoulders. How? Professional team. In and out in under 10 minutes, bypassed every ward we had. Tonks's voice was bitter. We got played, Harry. The investigation was never meant to find anything. It was meant to pull our attention while they hit us where it actually hurt. Harry opened his eyes. His expression was calm, controlled, the mask he'd learned to wear in the Dursley household, when showing pain only invited more. Casualties? 2 guards, stunned but alive. They never saw who hit them. The secondary copies of the evidence? Safe. The goblins have them in vaults Malfoy can't touch. Some of the tension eased from Harry's shoulders. Secondary copies. Contingencies within contingencies. He hadn't survived this long by putting all his eggs in one basket. So we lost the originals but kept the leverage. Essentially. But the originals had authenticity that copies can't match. Any legal case we tried to build would be weaker. Harry nodded slowly, processing. The loss hurt, there was no denying that. But it wasn't fatal. Just a setback. And setbacks could be overcome. Get me a full report on the warehouse breach. I want to know everything, how they got in, what they took, how they got out. Harry's voice hardened. And start looking for whoever coordinated this. Someone fed Malfoy information about our security arrangements. I want to know who. You think we have another spy? I think Malfoy wouldn't have risked an operation this exposed without inside intelligence. Harry turned toward his office. Find them. Whatever it takes. The spy hunt consumed the following weeks. Harry approached it differently this time, no traps, no false information plans. Instead, he restructured his entire information architecture, compartmentalizing operations so completely that no single person could compromise more than a tiny fraction of his network. It made everything slower, more complicated. But it also made treachery nearly impossible. The restructuring revealed something interesting: the leak wasn't coming from inside the refuge at all. It was coming from the goblins. Impossible, Ironheart said flatly when Harry presented his findings. Gringotts has maintained client confidentiality for 15 centuries. No goblin would, not Gringotts. Harry slid a document across the table. A specific goblin. Working for a specific clan. The Goldtooth clan, to be precise. Ironheart's expression shifted. Among goblins, that name carried weight, and not the good kind. Goldtooth is radical, Ironheart said carefully. They believe goblins should take a more active role in wizard affairs. Manipulate events to goblin advantage. They've been manipulating events all right. Just not to goblin advantage. Harry pointed to a section of the document. This is a record of communication between a Goldtooth representative and someone in Malfoy's organization. Payment records. Information transfers. Going back 8 months. Ironheart's face went gray. If this is true. It's true. I've verified it through 3 independent sources. Harry leaned back in his chair. The question is what we do about it. This isn't my decision to make. Goblin justice is internal. I'm not asking for goblin justice. I'm asking for your help cutting off the leak. Harry's eyes met Ironheart's. You're my partner, not just my banker. This affects both of us. Ironheart was silent for a long moment. Harry could see the conflict playing across his sharp features, loyalty to his species warring with loyalty to their partnership. The Goldtooth representative, Ironheart said finally. His name is Grimclaw. He handles sensitive accounts. Accounts that require discretion beyond normal parameters. Like Malfoy's? Among others. Ironheart's voice hardened. If he's been selling information, he's violated every oath a goblin holds sacred. The punishment would be severe. I don't need him punished. I need him silenced. Harry considered options. Can you make that happen without triggering a clan war? Possibly. If I have evidence strong enough that even Goldtooth can't dispute it. Ironheart reached for the document Harry had provided. This might be enough. Give me 3 days. You have 2. Ironheart's lips twisted in something that might have been a smile. You drive a hard bargain, for a child. I'm not a child. I'm your partner. Harry stood, extending his hand. 2 days, Ironheart. And then we close this leak permanently. The goblin clasped his hand. His grip was strong, his eyes sharp with something that looked almost like pride. 2 days, he agreed. And then we show Malfoy what happens when he tries to use goblin against goblin. Ironheart delivered in 36 hours. Grimclaw vanished from Gringotts overnight, reassigned, the official statement said, to a remote outpost in the goblin territories. Harry suspected the truth was considerably less pleasant, but he didn't ask. Some things were better left unexplored. With the leak closed, Harry turned his attention to offense. We've been playing defense too long, he told his inner circle during their next strategy session. Reacting to Malfoy's moves instead of making our own. It's time to change that. What did you have in mind? Tonks asked. The dark artifacts. The ones Flint mentioned, the ones being moved through the Manchester warehouse. Harry pulled out a map of magical Britain. We know Malfoy's been stockpiling them. We know there's something specific he's after, something valuable enough to risk Ministry attention. The diary, Lupin said quietly. Flint mentioned a diary. The diary. Harry nodded. We need to know what it is and why Malfoy values it so highly. If it's valuable to him, it might be valuable to us. You want to steal it? Mira asked. I want to understand it. Then decide what to do. Harry's eyes swept the room. Flint, what can you find out about this diary? Where it came from, what it does, why Malfoy's obsessed with it? Flint shifted uncomfortably. Since his near exposure as a double agent, he'd been walking a careful line, providing useful intelligence while maintaining his cover with Malfoy. The strain was visible in his face. I can try. But Malfoy's been careful about the diary, more careful than anything else. He keeps it separate from his other operations, doesn't discuss it with anyone except his closest associates. Then become a closer associate. That's not as easy as, I know it's not easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. Harry's voice softened slightly. I'm asking you to take a risk, Marcus. I know that. But this diary is important, I can feel it. We need to know what we're dealing with. Flint was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. I'll do what I can. But if Malfoy suspects anything. If Malfoy suspects anything, you disappear. We have extraction protocols for exactly that situation. Harry met Flint's eyes steadily. I won't sacrifice you for information. But I need you to try. I'll try, Flint said. That's all I can promise. That's all I'm asking. The opportunity came 3 weeks later. Flint had managed to position himself closer to Malfoy's inner circle, close enough to learn that the diary was being moved to a new location. The transfer would happen at midnight, at a secure facility owned by a Malfoy shell company. It's a small team, Flint reported. 4 guards, 1 handler. They'll be moving by Portkey, so we can't intercept en route. But there's a window, maybe 5 minutes, between when they arrive and when the receiving wards activate. 5 minutes is enough. Harry studied the facility blueprints Flint had provided. Tonks, can you get in and out in 5 minutes? If everything goes perfectly. Maybe. Tonks's expression was skeptical. But when does anything go perfectly? Then we build in redundancy. Harry pointed to 3 locations on the blueprints. Entry here, extraction here and here. You get the diary, you get out. If anything goes wrong, abort and disappear. And if I can't get the diary? Then information becomes the priority. Anything you can learn about what it is, where it came from, why it matters. Harry met her eyes. But don't die for it. We can find another way if this one fails. Tonks nodded slowly. I'll need a backup. Someone who can extract me if things go sideways. Lupin will be positioned nearby. If you trigger the emergency signal, he'll come in. With all due respect, Harry, Lupin isn't exactly stealthy. He doesn't need to be stealthy. He needs to be terrifying. Harry's lips curved slightly. 3 days after full moon, the wolf is still close to the surface. If something threatens his pack, he's motivated. Tonks glanced at Lupin, who was watching the exchange with yellow-tinged eyes. Motivated, she repeated. Right. The operation is tomorrow night. Get some rest. We'll go over final details in the morning. The infiltration went wrong almost immediately. Harry monitored from a safe house a mile away, communication charms connecting him to Tonks and Lupin. He'd wanted to be closer, wanted to be there, but his people had convinced him that risking the organization's leader on a field operation was strategically foolish. They were right. He still hated it. I'm in position, Tonks's voice crackled through the charm. Portkey arrival in 2 minutes. Acknowledged. Lupin. Ready. Lupin's voice was rougher than usual, the wolf bleeding through. I don't like this, Harry. Something feels wrong. Define wrong. I don't know. Just, wrong. The air smells off. Like anticipation. Harry's instincts prickled. Lupin's senses were preternaturally sharp, especially this close to the full moon. Tonks, hold position. Don't move until we verify, contact. Tonks's voice went sharp. The portkey just arrived. 4 guards, 1 handler, matching description. But there's... Harry, there are more people inside the building than there should be. How many more? I count at least 8 additional signatures. They're trying to hide, but my detection spells are picking up, the communication charm screamed with feedback. Harry yanked it away from his ear, heart pounding. Tonks. Lupin. Report. Static. Then Lupin's voice, tight with barely contained rage. It's a trap. They knew we were coming. There are Aurors here, Aurors and something else. Tonks is surrounded. Get her out. I'm trying, but, sounds of combat, spells crashing, someone screaming. There's too many. Harry, I can't, get her out. More combat noise. A roar that was distinctly not human. Then, suddenly, Tonks's voice. I'm clear. Lupin, we need to move, go. I'll cover you. Lupin, no, go. The communication charm went dead. Harry sat in a safe house, staring at the silent device in his hand. His mind was racing, calculations and contingencies tumbling over each other in a desperate search for solutions. Lupin had stayed behind. Lupin had sacrificed himself to let Tonks escape. And Harry wasn't there. Couldn't help. Could only wait and hope and feel the same helpless rage he'd felt in the cupboard under the stairs. No. Never again. Never again. Dobby. The elf appeared instantly. Master Harry. Can you reach the facility? Extract Lupin. Dobby's ears drooped. There are wards, Master Harry. Strong wards. Dobby cannot be breaking through alone. Then we go together. Harry stood, grabbing his wand. Take me as close as you can. I'll break the wards myself. Master Harry, that is being very dangerous, I don't care about dangerous. Lupin is my family. Harry's voice cracked, childhood and adulthood warring in the same breath. Take me there. Now. Dobby stared at him for a moment. Then the elf squared his tiny shoulders. Dobby is serving the great Harry Potter. Whatever Master Harry is needing. They vanished. The facility was chaos. Harry and Dobby appeared at the edge of the ward line, close enough to see but too far to help. Inside the perimeter, spells flew in every direction, red stunners, green something worse, the silvery flash of shield charms pushed to their limits. At the center of it all, a massive wolf tore through a line of black-robed figures. Not a true werewolf, the moon wasn't full, but something close. Lupin's human form, transformed by rage and desperation into something that moved like nightmare-given flesh. Blood matted his fur. His claws left furrows in stone. But he was surrounded. And he was slowing. The wards. Harry's voice was steady despite the terror clawing at his chest. Dobby, can you feel where they're anchored? Yes, Master Harry. For anchors, there and hit them. All of them. Everything you have. But Master Harry's magic, do it. Dobby's hands came up, trembling with effort. Harry added his own power to the elves, feeding magic through their connection in a way that shouldn't have been possible, a way that existed only because Harry refused to accept that it couldn't. The wards screamed. It was the same sound as apparition through resistance, the sound of magic tearing against magic, but louder, more desperate. Harry felt something in his chest pull, felt blood trickle from his nose, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Lupin is family. Family doesn't abandon family. The wards shattered. Harry was moving before the last fragments faded, sprinting across open ground toward the chaos. His wand spat stunners at anyone who got in his way, not elegant magic, not precise magic, just raw power channeled through desperation. Lupin. The wolf turned. Yellow eyes met green, and for a moment, Harry saw recognition, saw Remus, buried beneath the beast. Then a spell hit Lupin from behind, a thick purple curse that wrapped around him like chains, and the wolf collapsed. No. Harry raised his wand. The wizard who'd cast the curse was still gloating, still not seeing the threat, stupefy. The stunner hit with enough force to send the wizard flying. Harry didn't stop to check if he was unconscious or dead, he was already running toward Lupin, toward the chains of purple light that were slowly constricting. Impressive. A new voice. Cold, cultured, amused. Harry froze. A figure emerged from the shadows of the facility, tall, thin, pale in a way that suggested either aristocratic breeding or insufficient sun. His eyes were dark and ancient, and when he smiled, his teeth were just slightly too sharp. You must be the famous Harry Potter. The figure drifted closer, seemingly unconcerned by the chaos around them. I've heard so much about you. Who are you? Names are complicated things. But you may call me Rookwood. The smile widened. Augustus Rookwood. And I have been very interested in making your acquaintance. Harry's wand never wavered. You're the one behind this. The trap. Lucius provided the resources. I provided the strategy. Rookwood's eyes gleamed. Did you really think you could move against Malfoy's interests without consequence? Did you think your little shadow empire would go unchallenged forever? Let Lupin go. Your pet werewolf. Rookwood glanced at the struggling form in the purple chains. He'll be useful for questioning. So many interesting things a spy network's enforcer might know. I said let him go. And what will you do if I don't? You're 9 years old, Mr. Potter. Powerful for your age, certainly. That ward breaking was genuinely impressive, but still just a child. Rookwood's voice dropped to something almost gentle. You're out of your depth. You've been out of your depth since the day you walked into Gringotts. The only question is whether you're smart enough to admit it. Harry's mind raced. Rookwood was right, he was outmatched, outnumbered, operating without backup or plan. Everything he'd built was useless here, in this moment, against this enemy. But he wasn't 9 years old. Not really. He'd stopped being a child the first time Vernon Dursley's belt cracked across his back. You want me, Harry said quietly. That's what this is really about. The warehouse raid, the investigation, this trap, it's all been about getting to me. Very good. Rookwood's smile returned. You're a problem, Mr. Potter. A destabilizing element. The Dark Lord's followers have plans, and you keep interfering with them. The Dark Lord is dead. The Dark Lord is patient. Something flickered in Rookwood's ancient eyes. He will return. And when he does, he'll want to know who his enemies are. Who stood against his followers. Who built power in the shadows while his servants waited. And you're going to tell him. I'm going to offer him options. Rookwood spread his hands. You could be an enemy, certainly. But you could also be an asset. A child with your talents, raised properly, guided by the right influences. You want to recruit me. I want to evaluate you. Tonight has been educational. Rookwood's gaze sharpened. You broke through wards that should have been unbreakable. You crossed a mile of hostile territory in minutes. You face a Death Eater without flinching. He tilted his head. These are not the actions of a normal child. I'm not a normal child. No. You're not. Rookwood moved closer, close enough that Harry could smell something strange on him, old magic, dark magic, the scent of power that had been twisted into unnatural shapes. Which is why I'm offering you a choice. What choice? Come with me. Willingly. Let me show you what real power looks like, what the Dark Lord's followers can offer someone of your abilities. Rookwood's voice was hypnotic, seductive. In exchange, your werewolf goes free. Your little empire continues unmolested. Everyone you care about survives. And if I refuse? Then tonight ends badly. For everyone. Harry looked at Lupin, still struggling against the purple chains. Looked at Dobby, hovering nearby, ready to fight or flee at Harry's command. Looked at the chaos around them, the unconscious bodies, the burning building, the evidence of a battle he'd already lost. What would James Potter do? He wondered. What would Lily? The answer came immediately: they'd fight. They'd refuse to surrender, refuse to be controlled, refuse to let anyone use them as weapons. And they'd died for it. But maybe dying wasn't the worst option. Maybe there were things worth dying for, things more important than survival, more precious than power. No, Harry said quietly. Rookwood's eyebrows rose. No. I won't go with you. I won't join you. I won't betray everything I've built just because you're threatening people I love. Then they'll die. You understand that? Maybe. Harry's voice was steady now, calm with a certainty he hadn't known he possessed. But there's something you don't understand, Rookwood. Something you've never understood. And what's that? I'm not fighting to win. Harry's wand rose, pointing directly at Rookwood's heart. I'm fighting to survive. And I've been surviving things that should have killed me since I was 5 years old. He didn't speak the incantation. Didn't think it. Just felt the magic rise in him, raw, desperate, fueled by every moment of fear and pain and loneliness he'd ever experienced. The spell that erupted from his wand wasn't any color Harry recognized. It was bright and dark at the same time, a contradiction made manifest, and when it hit Rookwood's hastily raised shield, the shield shattered. Rookwood staggered back, genuine shock crossing his face. Harry didn't give him time to recover. He was already moving, grabbing Lupin, breaking the purple chains through sheer force of will, shouting for Dobby to take them. The world twisted. Colors bled. And then they were gone, leaving behind nothing but chaos and questions. They appeared on the roof of the refuge, Lupin's body heavy in Harry's arms. Tonks was there, waiting, watching, her face pale with fear. When she saw them, she made a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a laugh. You're alive. You're both alive. Barely. Harry lowered Lupin to the ground, checking the werewolf's breathing. Shallow but steady. He needs a healer. Already summoned. Tonks knelt beside them, her hands moving with trained efficiency. Harry, what happened? The communication cut out, and then there was that explosion of magic, and, later. Harry's voice was exhausted, wrung out. Tell me later. Right now, just, help me save him. Tonks nodded. She didn't ask more questions, didn't push for details. She just worked, and Harry knelt beside her, holding Lupin's hand, willing him to survive. Please, he thought, to whatever power might be listening. Please don't take him from me. Not yet. Not like this. The healers arrived. They took over, their magic flowing into Lupin's broken body, stitching together what had been torn apart. Harry watched, too tired to stand, too stubborn to leave. And as dawn broke over Knockturn Alley, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Remus Lupin opened his eyes. Harry. His voice was a croak. I'm here. You came for me. Of course I did. Harry's vision blurred with tears he hadn't known he was crying. Your family. We don't abandon family. Lupin's hand found his, grip weak but determined. James would be proud, he whispered. Harry couldn't speak. He just held on, and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he'd earned that pride. The days that followed were quiet ones. Lupin recovered slowly, the wolf's magic accelerating healing that would have taken months for a normal wizard. Harry spent hours at his bedside, reading aloud from books about magical theory, catching him up on everything that had happened during his unconsciousness. Rookwood had vanished. The facility had been found burned to the ground, no bodies, no evidence. The ministry investigation went nowhere. But Harry knew. Rookwood was still out there. Still watching. Still waiting. And he'd be back. You're brooding, Tonks observed one evening, finding Harry on his usual rooftop perch. I'm planning. You're brooding and planning. She settled beside him, her hair a contemplative purple. Want to talk about it? Rookwood offered me a choice. Join him or watch everyone I love die. And you chose door number 3, blow him up with impossible magic. It wasn't impossible. It was just. Harry struggled for words. Desperate. Like everything else I do. Tonks was quiet for a moment. Then she bumped his shoulder with hers. You know what I think? What? I think desperate is underrated. Her voice was soft but certain. I think the whole world runs on people who are too stubborn to quit, too angry to surrender, too desperate to accept that things can't change. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it's also how things actually change. Tonks turned to look at him, her eyes serious despite her casual tone. You scared Rookwood tonight. I could see it, just for a second, when your spell broke through his shield. He didn't expect you to fight back like that. He didn't expect you to win. I didn't win. I just survived. Surviving is winning, Harry. At least in this war. Harry considered this. Survival as victory. It was a strange frame, but maybe not wrong. The diary, he said finally. Did we learn anything about it? A little. Tonks managed to get some information before everything went sideways. Tonks pulled a crumpled parchment from her pocket. It's old, really old. And it's connected to Voldemort somehow. A piece of him, maybe. Whatever that means. A piece of Voldemort. Harry thought about the scar on his forehead. The connection he'd felt sometimes, in dreams, to something cold and dark and hungry. A piece of him. We need to find it, he said quietly. Whatever it takes. I figured you'd say that. Tonks stood, brushing off her robes. I've already got people looking. We'll find it, Harry. And when we do, we'll figure out what to do with it. Exactly. She paused at the rooftop door. Get some sleep. You look like death warmed over. I'll sleep when we're safe. I know. But you can't protect anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Her voice softened. Let us take care of things for one night. You've earned that much. Harry wanted to argue. Wanted to insist that he was fine, that he didn't need rest, that there was too much to do. But the truth was, he was tired. Bone-deep tired, the kind that came from fighting battles that never seemed to end. One night, he agreed. Tonks smiled and disappeared through the door. Harry sat alone on the roof, watching the stars will overhead. 1 year ago, he'd been a starving child in a cupboard, dreaming of escape. Now he was something else, something he still didn't have a name for. A leader. A survivor. A 9-year-old who'd built an empire from nothing and defended it against forces that should have destroyed him. But he wasn't done yet. Rookwood was still out there. Voldemort was still coming. The diary was still a mystery. And somewhere, in Malfoy Manor, a boy named Draco was still waiting to be saved. Harry closed his eyes and let himself rest. Tomorrow, the war would continue. But tonight, he was alive. His people were alive. And that was enough. For now.